France. Welcome to the Alps now. We're with them for most of the week. And this is the first time we've had a mountain top finish in Switzerland for a quarter of a century. We're coming to Verbier for the first time. It's a brute of a climb as they come up to the summit of the Alps today. And he who wins might well be the next leader of this tour. Hello everybody, welcome back. A very special day in the Tour de France today on Versus. I'm Phil Liggett, this is Paul Sherwin. We saw the contretemps of yesterday with Hincapie, Astana and with Garmin. Well, today it's all about who is going to be the next leader of the Tour de France, because I think, Paul, there will be changes.
There'll be a showdown today, there has to be. We've talked about it for 14 days now. The big men of the Tour de France today, Phil, will come out and fight.
Just how good is Lance Armstrong? How good is Alberto Contador? These are the contenders who are also friends. This man has led for a week. How good is he really? Will he crack on the climbs today? Nobody really knows. Nocentini pulls on a yellow jersey this morning. It'll be the toughest day to defend it. These are the men who we think will be hunting for that jersey.
Look at that. 6 seconds is what Alberto Contador is looking for. 8 seconds is what Lance Armstrong wants. Andreas Kloden is up there inside less than a minute. Van der Velde, Andy Schleck, Carlos Sastre. Cadel Evans has a lot to do, Phil, though, from 19th at 3:07 if he wants to move into the top 5.
Back to the start in Pontarlier today. 163 riders rolling away. Will it be the last day in the yellow jersey for Rinaldo Nocentini? Straight out to the start house. A flag goes in. It's rain is just going away from the start area here, and it's nice and sunny, if chilly, at the top of the mountain in Verbier. Climb number 1, the Côte de Raffort, 8 kilometers in. Pelazzotti was spearing ahead. A breakaway here gets 4 points, and Martinez gets 2. He crossed the line in 3rd place.
On the second climb of the day, at 18 kilometers covered, the Col des Etoiles. It looked as if Chavanel was going to get the points here, but Franco Pelazzotti roared by to get himself once again maximum points.
So he's picked up 4 points already in the first 2 climbs today against his arch rival in the Côte de Carrière. Christophe Kern got the better of them. He's up there in the overall as well of the King of the Mountains. Pelazzotti 3rd, Martinez 4th.
Coming up to the sprint point of 57 kilometers covered, a breakaway starting to form, but a dangerous breakaway, because in this breakaway was Tony Martin, and he was very high up in the overall standings. They went through the sprint point there, and Martinez got it.
At that point, the bunch were 45 seconds back. That's our Nature Valley stage reset. We'll take you live with the action now as we start to pan around the beauty of the area here, the Chateau Romand in the backdrop of this beautiful picture, of course, coming to you in high definition this year from the Tour de France. So check your local listing on how to get that. Good day today. It's sunny. It's a little bit chilly at 63 degrees Fahrenheit, and it'll get cooler up on the mountain as the day goes longer. And slight winds of 9 miles an hour coming from the west. Tom Boonen has not started the race. He was up all night with a bad stomach, and so he decided to withdraw. It's been a very poor tour indeed for the champion of Belgium, bringing the field down to 163. Teams intact are still 8, though, of the 20 in the event. This is interesting. This is how far we've come so far since that short 15-kilometer stage around Monaco. A total of 1,475 miles ridden. And we've wired up 3 riders today to see how the wattage and heartbeats are on the pulse with Chris Sorensen, Brian Van Berg and Stefan Ogier. So let's go down to the pictures, and right on the front here now is the Astana team. There is a break. Moments ago they managed to bring back into the pack David Miller, Tony Martin, Pelazzotti and Martinez. So they're back in the pack. The others are trying to make progress. Pressure is on, though. It's stretching to around 2 minutes. There is Lance Armstrong thinking of what might be at the end of the day, and behind him is his teammate Alberto Contador.
There will be a showdown today, Phil. We've had question marks since the race left Monaco with the first individual time trial, the team time trial a few days later. Then since then, we've played shadow boxing all the way around the hexagon of France. Today, everyone has to come to play. Jürgen van den Broek is the best placed rider in that, well, second best placed rider in that group. Mikel Astroloza is the best at 3 minutes and 2 seconds. However, they're not really regarded as dangerous in the overall standings of the race, and that's why they've been given a certain amount of freedom. Behind, though, Phil, there's got to be a very careful cat and mouse game, because the team Astana, who is doing the pacemaking once again as they did yesterday, have to keep a certain amount of energy back for this final climb of the day.
Well, they're going to keep an eye on Astelosa to make sure he doesn't run too far ahead. We've got a second category climb to come, still up the road, the Col de Moses, and that could be an indicator. There is Fedrigo there, who's also been riding well again today. We're in the breakaway. Juan Antonio Fletcher has just joined this leading group, so we now have 10 riders clear.
And there was a fairly impressive ride across. He bridged a gap of 45 seconds to this leading group at 9, probably feeling that this was going to be a serious break. There's rider Hazerdal. You can regard him as the man who really forced clear this breakaway, because once they were about to get caught by the main field, he went out alone and caused that little bit of a split.
So, as one of the local buzzards flies over the peloton today, looking for some roadkill, I would think. Today is a big day in the Tour de France. He's on that they will want back in the pack if they can get him back. He wears 61 if you spot him in the field here. There he goes up in the Euskadi colours. We're heading up to the mountains, and there they are, lying directly in the face of the riders. Now, up where we are at the moment, you can see by the Swiss flag, and we're in Switzerland, by the way, now, the crosswinds which are blowing.
We actually only did about 10 or 12 kilometers inside French soil this afternoon before crossing the border just inside the summit of the Col des Étoiles. The riders have covered themselves already with 3 very difficult climbs in the early part of the course. Only third categories. The next climb that they will line up for will be a second category climb, the Col de Moses, which will drop them down into the valley road then, Phil, taking them along to Martigny, and that's where the final climb of the day starts, up here to Verbier.
There's a huge crowd, by the way, waiting for them at Verbier. Today's another day, of course, and we'll see what pans out. At the moment, we've got a man in the breakaway, Astelosa, who is soon to be the leader on the road. In fact, he is the leader on the road right now. And he was referring there to Mark Cavendish as well. Well, Mark Cavendish he won the sprint from the peloton. He should have picked up 11 points in the competition, 13 points rather, in the green jersey competition. He was seen to move slightly off his line. I think it was a very harsh decision. He wasn't disqualified. He was relegated to the back of the race and therefore scores no points. And I think as a result of that has probably lost the challenge in the green jersey. I think that was a very hard decision.
I think it was a harsh decision because they never even spoken to Mark Cavendish since the start of this race, the referees, and they could have on that occasion, Phil, maybe just give him a severe warning and maybe a fine of 4 or 5 points. But just to put a close on the George Hincapie Astana Garmin thing, it is let's put it back into perspective. These guys are not robots, and although I know that Team Astana were trying to get the jersey across onto the shoulders of Lance Armstrong, this is really a sport that you cannot control, you cannot judge. You can try and move it into a specific direction, but at the end of the day, it really is uncontrollable, especially on the running towards the finish.
Because it's a bike race, and that's why we're here. And they're on rival teams. Let's not forget that either. They've got a right to attack, haven't they, all of these riders? Well, there's the peloton. It's moving swiftly now, but they're losing ground at the moment to a 14th Tour de France. He's seen it all before, but his family arrived here yesterday, and that made it a double disappointment because he didn't have the yellow jersey for a meagre 5 seconds. Well, as I say, by the end of today, we'll be talking about a very different Tour de France, I think. And George Hincapie, I hope, will get over it in the next couple of days, and he'll be in amongst it again for the last week of the Tour. Very familiar sight, though, now, deja vu, with the riders just laying into the race here at the front, all on Astana. They're holding the pace, not quite as quick as they were going yesterday, I have to say, because they're allowing a man potentially now to step into yellow. It might be a plan.
Well, Phil, you have to bear in mind these guys have got to ride from this point. They've got to ride 100 kilometres to the end of the race. So the plan is that they'll use these 2 riders they've got on the front at the moment to set the tempo for around about 30 or 40 kilometres. Gregory Rast is the man on the front doing this pacemaking. The man just behind him doing the pacemaking is Dmitry Mureyev. They will ride as long as they can on the flatter part of the course. Then once we get to the climb at the end, they'll bring in Sergio Paulinho, they'll bring in Jaroslav Popovic, Andreas Kloden, then start to take the pace that little bit higher. But they need a lot of riders on the final climb of the day because there's going to be a showdown. And the best thing to have when you have a showdown on a big mountain pass at the end is a lot of teammates around you.
Now, as we've heard on the way up the second category climb of the Col de Moses, it is not so hard from this side, and so it goes up in sort of levels like a ladder, a little bit of a plateau, and climbs again. I don't think it'll be decisive. I think once we get through Martigny, which is where the race will restart on Tuesday, I think that's when the action will start to come. What sort of a lead would you give these riders before you've got to react anyway?
I would give them 5 minutes at the bottom of the climb, and that if they have got 5 minutes, they've got a chance of surviving to get the stage victory. But they'll lose 2 or 3 minutes of that on the final climb of the day. But it always gives me a bit of a giggle, Phil, when somebody who's a good climber describes a climb as being fairly easy from this side, because Bernard Eisel, Mark Cavendish, Thor Hushovd, they won't find this second category climb easy at all. No, well,
but those guys don't like the 60 km/h sprints, and that's the way it is. You are what you're a horse for the course. There is Nicholas Roach there. He rode superbly in the breakaway yesterday, and he got away in the end to chase even off to the line. So he got a second place on the stage of the Tour de France. Son of Stephen, the winner of the Tour in 1987. I think Dad would have been very pleased with his ride yesterday.
No, definitely. He will have been watching, probably at home in Ireland, the performances of his son. In fact, he physically followed Nicholas around the individual time trial around Monaco. You can see the sprinters starting to amass at the back here, Phil. Number 6 there, Thor Hushovd. I reckon that green jersey now is starting to look pretty solid on his shoulders, with an 18-point advantage over Mark Cavendish after his relegation yesterday.
Little bit of a narrow fit here, Paul, at the moment, as the riders go through here. There's lots of tram lines in this part of Switzerland. 58.2 miles to go. 10 riders. The last man to reach it was Juan Antonio Fletcher. Lance Armstrong today searching for yellow since he announced his comeback to Sire. We're in Switzerland, heading to Verbier today, 129 miles. It's a good ride. The weather's warming up and no rain forecast for the day. Damp conditions at the start on Pontarlier this morning. Let's have a little look at the way we're going today. We left Pontarlier. We were only in France for about 10 kilometres. Then we were across the border. We're not far away now from getting onto the lower slopes of the Col de Moses, which takes up there to 4,700 feet, and I think we can have a closer look at that. That's it, 8.6 miles long, this climb, but we are climbing it, according to Christian Vande Velde, from the easier side. Well, we'll see, because the boys in the breakaway have one dangerous man in it, in Astalosa, and that means that they're having to react to it, and the break has been reduced considerably to inside 4 minutes now. Well, it's just onto the start of the climb here, the Col de Moses. It's quite a long climb, Paul. If it's not that steep, it is certainly long. It is over 8 miles high, which will put it around about 14 kilometres, this climb.
That's right, it's about 14 kilometres, a fairly average gradient of around about 6%. Jürgen van den Broek just here, Phil, setting the tempo on the front end of the main field, and what he's doing is riding at his own tempo. It's a lot easier when you come to the slopes of a climb like this to ride at a tempo which is comfortable for yourself, and you're not having the tempo dictated by someone else.
Well, this is Van den Broek on the front. It's behind him is Fedrigo, Pierrick Fedrigo, who you may remember outsprinted Pelazzotti in Tarbes when we came down there from the Pyrenees. That was a big stage win for him. Fabien Cancellara, who's not a great mounting goat, but he did win the Tour of Switzerland this year, which wasn't as hilly as it normally is, but there were some hills certainly as hard as the climb they're on now.
Nice little story as well. If we just look along there at the Lamprey ride, you might just have noticed him, Simon Spilak. He was last on this stage the other day, Phil. He should have been eliminated, but because he was hindered getting to the finish by traffic and population coming onto the race route, the race referees made the very rare decision to pull him back into the event, and here he is in the breakaway today.
It is a very rare decision too. They don't normally reinstate riders, but they did feel that he was badly done to out on mountains, but he's still only 28. Last year he finished 45th in his first Tour de France, and that is a really good position when you first get to this big race. As I said earlier, the only Canadian in the race, so let's cheer him up, because there he is right on the front of the breakaway. How was that for coincidence? As riders working very hard in this breakaway. He's on Garmin slipstream, softening them up perhaps for Christian Vande Velde and Bradley Wiggins later. Well, you can't have a prettier scene than that, I don't think, with the peloton coursing through the valleys, and now the breakaway on the climb itself. It gets a little bit steeper here. Ryder Heyerdahl driving well on the front. David Moncoutier just behind him at the moment. This is a pretty good, solid moving breakaway. No passion as it appears just now.
Well, Ryder Hezjedal there with the orange shoulders on his jersey for Team Garmin Slipstream started his life off, Phil, as a very good mountain biker before moving across to this side of the sport, and he's made a very successful transfer as well, and we've seen him on the attack on a number of occasions, but this is the best attack he's managed to get himself into. He takes a bit of pressure off his team as well by being represented in this breakaway, because they too will be looking to try and place Christian Vande Velde and Bradley Wiggins right up at the top end of the race once we start to get to the climb of Verbier.
Yes, and it's good to have a teammate in the leading group. Maybe they can join him on the climb, maybe. Or maybe he can stay away. He's been in a couple of moves this year, and he's been a little bit unlucky. It haven't quite worked out for him, but that's often the case. We're inside 80 kilometres from the finish now, don't forget. We'll be 72 from the finish. Once we get over the summit of the climb, then it's a nice descent, a valley ride into Martigny. And although the climb to Verbier doesn't officially start in Martigny, the road starts to drag steadily up. It's quite a heavy road before we arrive at base camp and then climb up to Verbier. Looking around at the monitors on the computer here, Brian Van Borg's heart's beating at 138 beats per minute. Fairly good output, almost 300 watts, Paul. Well, 300 watts is starting to get up there quite a bit. Looking down in the main field, there's number 22, Lance Armstrong, sitting right behind Heinrich Hausler, the man who won the stage into Colmar just a couple of days ago. Armstrong, for the first time, sitting a little bit further back down the main field and leaving all of the pacemaking to his men, who are in a big long line at the front. Yes, well, Armstrong just sitting back in the pack. He knows what the plan is for Astana today. There is one, we know that for sure. We just don't know what it is, but I would assume it's going to be an attack, and it's going to probably come from Lance Armstrong. Or Alberto Contador. Or Alberto Contador. But I just feel it'll be Lance Armstrong. We'll see. 4:37 the gap, biggest so far. Well, 4 minutes 36, it's just gone down by a second, and 78 kilometres to go. Astalosa now has got himself in the race lead by 1 minute and 34 seconds, and that's quite Astana. Do you think Paul just going to monitor this? Yep. Hope he wins, maybe even get the yellow jersey? All they're doing is keeping that gap as a sensible gap. You see, every time it starts to creep up a fraction, they put the pressure at the front end of the main field with their two workers, and Dmitry Muravyev. Big peloton here, not interested in the chase back just at the moment here. Quick reminder about the Cadillac Ride of Your Life sweepstakes. Go to versus.com/Ride of Your Life. Take part in the competition there. You might be with us on the Tour de France next year, or you might be riding a Cervelo S2 bicycle. You need the code word today to get on board, which is hammering. Looking down in the screen, we've got Lance having a drink there. You can always pick him out. His own Livestrong crash helmet on, which is yellow, whereas the boys you can see here wear blue ones. There's Gregory Rast. What a workhorse this man is. Top-end diesel engine, this chap. He's here just to keep the pace high, and if anybody senses it slowing, he's told to do it. So we've got 10 boys up front, and at the moment they're gaining time over the peloton. We're on the climb of the Col de Moses. We're all working towards a Chrysler Commercial 3 half-hour. Stations will be laid for final victory, as the riders now in the breakaway look to be going very well, but I have to say that the peloton also seems to have picked up the tempo. This is Hezjedal. Looks like Juan Antonio Fletcher struggling a little bit at the back. Astalosa has gone off to have a word with the team car. This is the Col de Moses we are on at the moment. They've gone past the 5 kilometres to the top sign. It's actually a 14-kilometre climb. Once at the top, there's 72 kilometres to the finish at Verbier, but it's downhill for a while, then it's up to the top of the Category 1 climb. On the back of the team car, there's Astalosa. It looks as though, in fact, Juan Antonio Fletcher is beginning to feel the pressure from that breakaway. Well, I think he probably is, Phil. He was probably the rider who had the hardest ride across the gap. He, in fact, bridged a 45-second gap when a lot of the riders in that leading group were, in fact, working very well together. And he realized this was the possibility of a winning move. So he's obviously really suffering. All he's got to do, though, is hang on for a couple more kilometres, and he should be able to go over the top with the group. A little bit of a reversal down to 4 minutes 11. In fact, Radio Tour telling us is now down to 4 minutes 5 seconds. So the tempo has been picked up by the team of Astana on the climb. It gets a bit steeper as well. Looking again at the monitor of the pulses. Chris Anker Sorensen's heart's now going at 164 beats a minute. He's in the pack here, by the way. He's pumping out 413 watts now, Paul.
Yeah, that's an indication, Phil, that the pressure is on. Once you get up to 160 to 170 beats a minute, you're getting up to 85% of your maximum. And that wattage is an indication that the climb here is really starting to bite. So those two riders at the front, and it's the same two riders for Team Astana who've been setting the pace for a good 25 to 30 kilometers. It's still Gregory Rast and still Dmitry Muraev. And what they're doing is they're holding in reserve a couple of the other riders for the approach to the climb. This is Jaroslav Popovic. I'm presuming that Popovic is just sliding to the back to go and have a word with the team car. Hands up on the air there. That's probably to take on board water.
Riders here now are about 500 meters, I think, from the summit of the Col de Moses. The leaders already on the way down. And it was Fedrigo, Astolosa and Vandenbroek in that order over the summit. There is the summit there. So they're just over 3 minutes 20 seconds. Summit 3:22, 3:23, which means that Astolosa is now the leader on the road by just about 20 seconds. Now we're looking here of the leaders on the descent. A good wide road, smooth descent here now. And it looks as though the orange jersey there of Mikel Astolosa, which was dreaming of yellow by a couple of moments ago, can now only think of it by about 15 seconds. It's amazing how quickly they pull that back pull on that climb.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the back there, Phil, in the red shorts of David Moncoutier. He's probably casting his mind back to a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember when he actually broke his leg in the Tour of Romandy, a very nasty break. And in fact, it was on the descent of this climb in a very wet stage of the Tour of Romandy, and it took him an awful long time to get himself back up to the top end of the sport.
But he has come back, but I think he's indicated to us, Paul, that he is not going for the King of the Mountains titles. He didn't really participate there.
It's too late, Phil.
He's really go for stages.
He really needed to get himself points in the Pyrenees, and that was what his original plan was, to go for a long attack on one of the Pyrenean stages to build up an advantage, as Franco Pellizotti did. Pellizotti built the foundations of his lead throughout the Pyrenees. Now Moncoutier is too far behind. He's got to concentrate on trying to get himself a stage victory and not waste any energy going for points when he's so far behind in that competition.
Well, we're looking here now. The Liquigas team of Pellizotti has started to drive. Now there's two boys on the Liquigas. We've also got Vincenzo Nibali, who is third in the white jersey competition, currently led by Tony Martin on Team Columbia HTC. But you know, Nibali is another rider. He's only a young boy who might well try and
a lot of riders want to write their names onto the victory roster at the top end of this climb up to Verbier, including in the breakaway Fabien Cancellara. But if you look at the way this team here is working, the team behind in the second rank there in the lime green, Team Liquigas, they've got a number of riders who would be interested in trying to attack. And let's not discount Roman Kreuziger, because he knows Switzerland very well. He's won the Tour of Romandy in the past, and he's won the Tour.
The advantage overnight was 3-2 for a deficit for Astolosa, rather, so he's just 21 seconds, the virtual yellow jersey, on the road. Back with the peloton now as they all continue to freewheel down. A very easy descent this at the moment. Oldest man in the race, second from the end there, Inigo Cuesta, 40 years and 1 month. And he really is riding exceptionally well.
But still as enthusiastic as ever, and we'll see just exactly what he does when we come to the final climb of the day. He's in the Tour de France this year to look after the interests of the defending champion, Carlos Sastre, who really has had a very quiet Tour de France. He's not been involved in any crashes, he's not been involved in any incidents, and he should be starting this final week with his full complement of his capabilities.
Big sweep around the bend. We're back with the leaders here, and they're all giving themselves lots of space to keep an eye on each other as they sweep round that bend. Probably descending around 60-65 kilometers now in the peloton. But one or two of the riders are clearly nervous on this descent, even though it is nice road, dry. Juan Antonio Fletcher's already fallen, so he's probably thinking of that.
It's a good point you raised there, Phil, about the surface of the roads, because here in Switzerland the surface of the roads is extremely smooth, and that makes it a little easier to climb than some of the climbs we're going to go to in the Alps once we come out of the rest day.
Concentration on the face of the boys from Liquigas. a card to play, maybe launching Pelazzotti, who's a very good climber, to try and win the day. Won't be quite the mark man that Contador or Armstrong would be if they make a move. Beautiful Trek aerial view today. We're in, don't forget, we are now in the heart of Switzerland, and there's plenty of chateaux, sits on the treetops around this part of the world. This is the Chateau Romont as the cameras circle around it. It's our Trek aerial view, and it's a beautiful shot. There'll be plenty of those today, though, as we head up towards Verbier. There's a definite chasing down of the breakaway right now, who are all on the descent of the Col de Moses. And indeed, it is Liquigas, and Astana will be pretty pleased about this, putting 2 riders on the front and driving. Their plan possibly is to try and get Pelazzotti up the mountain for the King of the Mountains points at the finishing line in Verbier. Today. Well, speed is up now, Paul, and the time gap is just closing, but Fabian Cancellara, I'm not so sure he will wait.
Well, in fact, sorry about that, Phil. Race Radio just crackled through and said he has waited for the group. I think that was the most sensible move that he could make, because from Aigle to the foot of the final climb of the day, there's a 40-kilometer ride along the valley road, and I don't think Cancellara was up for doing that on his own this afternoon. He needs, I think, to stay in the group, because if the group is to survive to the bottom of the climb, they need to work together, because the main pack, with a different team coming to do the pacemaking at the front, I think are looking to have a showdown of the heads of state and not allow the breakaway its success.
I don't think it will be successful today, the way they've held it at 3:35 now. It was out heading up towards 5 minutes at one stage. There's still a few riders off the front of this pack, and I don't see Cancellara here, so he must be still around the corner. If those 2 riders reach him first, they may try to ride away. It's a nice dress rehearsal for the 40-kilometer time trial around Annecy, which you think is at the far end of next week.
Well, Cancellara was announced as being back in the main field, but he's still just around the corner there, about 20-30 meters off the front end of this pack. He wants to keep the pace nice and high, because they don't want to lose any time on a descent. That's not a great time to lose advantage.
They're thankfully dry today, but if you're little thin wheels and they're going over them right now, ever get caught in those tram tracks, there's no way out but down. And the peloton, in fact, not waiting for the bend, they're actually riding across those tracks, but they look as though they're all making it together.
The castle there of Aigle, 12th century castle, originally built and transformed by the Savoyards, and the reason it was built was to protect the village of Aigle, and it overlooks the valley and not too far away. Funnily enough, Phil, I think it was on stage 3 we went over the River Rhone. Well, we've got back to it here because it's not far away from here that it has its source.
That's right, as it leaves heading towards France. I was hoping they might show us the beautiful building which is the International Cycling Union's offices here, the headquarters in Aigle. We might see them yet. As we see now, the leaders of the Tour de France today, but it's looking a little bit better again. We're onto the Valley Road. The pace is up once more. The man in orange there is back in yellow for the moment. Astalosa, 4 minutes 8 seconds. There's been no slackers in this breakaway. They've got on with their job today.
Well, they're all very experienced riders, Phil, and when we look here at Moncoutier, he's won himself 2 stages in the Tour de France recently in his career, and one of those stages for him, happily, was on Bastille Day, and that was on Digne-les-Bains. He's promised to come out and try and get himself a stage victory in the Tour de France this year, and the only way he can do it is by getting into a breakaway like this.
That's what he always does. He looks for the moves, and he thought this one might have a chance. Like a lot of these riders in the breakaway, they'll be rather sorry of the presence of Mikel Astalosa, because they know that the chase will be on to catch him and bring him back. But on the other hand, Astana might be playing another card here, the way it's working out, making other teams chase Astalosa and watching and waiting. It could be the breakaway will succeed, but they won't see Astalosa as a long-term prospect, I don't think.
Quite strange, these valleys as well here in Switzerland, because very often the wind goes down the valley in one direction in the morning, then in the afternoon the wind swings around and comes back in the other direction. Fortunately, these guys have got it just at the right time. It's a tailwind.
Well, they're doing well. It reminds me never to train in this area then, Paul. Headwind both ways.
Just checking one of the funicular trains. it looks to me, Phil, well, you probably know more than I do. It looks like that was a trend
on. We have a leader on the road, and we're heading for the big climb of Verbier, and these stunning pictures coming in high definition to you. And I hope if you haven't got it, you should go out and check how to make it available. But it really makes the Tour de France come alive, that's for sure. The riders now are holding a very high tempo, and Astana on the right in the blue have found themselves a big ally here in the form of the Italian Liquigas boys. As the wind farms generate electricity, it looks like Astana and Liquigas are doing all the generating on the road here.
Well, his two teams have done all of the pacemaking this afternoon without asking for any assistance. I noticed that Team Astana just sat at the front end, stamping on the pedals, licking out the tempo for the main field to make sure that breakaway didn't get too far off the front. Then all of a sudden, in the last 20 kilometers, Liquigas have come to the front to give them some assistance. They've kept the pace up. They've reduced it to down around about the 3-minute mark. And I think we are getting ready for some serious racing, Phil, on this last climb of the day.
Well, they've got the breakaway under control because Mikel Astalosa started the day 3 minutes and 2 seconds back, now only leads by 8 seconds. So they're not going to worry about that. The infighting will start as we get through Martigny. Road gets a little bit lumpy, and then we start to go up there. Verbier is tucked just around the end of the rock there, and they might get a sight of it if they know where to look as they get up that end of the road. That's a great road for racing on. They're all over the road here, and they are coursing over here at around about 45 kilometers an hour. They're back with the breakaway.
Mikel Astalosa on the front, leading them around, looking to see when the climb is going to start, and that's what he will be looking for, as too will be Jürgen van den Broek.
We are looking at another massive crowd here. These are the 10 leaders, 27 kilometers left. We're into the start town for next Tuesday morning when the race resumes. This is Martigny. And as all these riders will have known, because they've checked the profiles, it's all steadily uphill now, but not the steep section yet. That's a little bit further up the road. 100 meters to the sprint, and it looks to me as though we've just got one of the Cofidis riders having a little dig. I think it's Moignard, isn't it?
That was a little acceleration there by Moncoutier, I think, Phil, trying to see whether or not, no, it was Moignard, and I think he was maybe trying to set something up for Moncoutier, who's there in third position.
Well, we'll see. And we've got two riders in the breakaway Cofidis. It could be a big killing for them if they can hold it away today. But it looks as though two big teams chasing, Liquigas and Astana. They're holding this race to wait till they get to the steep slopes, I think. So lovely day now. The sun right on the right shoulders. Fletcher on the right passing through. Astalosa virtually now, he's only in the lead by 13 seconds in that orange jersey, virtually on the road. Fedrigo there, taking on Food before the final assault, and Cancellara, the big man from Switzerland. In fact, his home is about 80 kilometers from where he is right now. So as we look at the peloton regrouping here, down there is the car of Astana, of the Garmin Slipstream rather. Let's see if we can look in here. This is Matt White again.
Now, our only goal for the day from now on, riders have got one race ahead of you. And as far as you guys, like I said before, the road starts going up at 192, and we just need our two guys. It's like a bunch sprint into the bottom of that one. We just need perfect position into the bottom of the climb, then they can do their own race up the final.
Well, that, I think he stopped talking. Well, 25 kilometers to go. We're getting up towards the start of the steady uphills now, and Matt is saying all that lies ahead now is the climb to Verbier. A little bit of a twisty approach to Verbier, Paul. We'll be steadily climbing. It may not always be apparent on the screen, but once we get into the town at the bottom of Verbier, which is the Villette-le-Chable, that's where we make a little kick, and then you're straight onto the slopes.
Well, it's a long drag now, Phil, from Martigny up towards the town of Villette, and it really is a long valley road looking down on the castle of Batiaz down there. That's a castle that dates back to the 13th century, and it really, I suppose, reflects the troubled times that this part of the world always had. You will nearly always find a castle or a citadel at the head of all of these valleys.
Well, we're right into the belly of the Alps here right now. For the people going into France, you've either got to go through the Mont Blanc tunnel or an awful long way around via Albeville and back into the mountains again towards the Col d'Isola. and the Isère Valley. The peloton now in Martigny themselves, and the crowd here are really clearly welcoming the Tour de France. They'll see them all again on Tuesday morning for the start of a very tough stage, which will see the riders go off through Italy before finally finding France again. 3 minutes 2 seconds the gap, exactly what Astolosa had at the start of the day, so he's out of the virtual yellow jersey on the road, and these boys are getting to look extremely twitchy now. This is the pressure point of the Tour. They know from here on in it's steadily up. So as I speak, it looks like it might have slowed a little bit there. Somebody has slipped off the front of the breakaway here. It must be Spilak who has launched a little attack off the front of the breakaway. So Spilak has gone, Paul, at 2:45. I don't know where he went. The camera's just switching here, but he's gone.
Well, I think this is an amazing story, Phil. When you think the other day he finished dead plumb last on the stage, 45 minutes behind the winner. He should have been eliminated. The judges reversed the decision because of the difficulties he had out on the race route. And here he is at the front of the stage.
Well, good luck to him. Let's see what he can do. Because he is not a marked rider, the breakaway, maybe he's just continuing to keep the rhythm. At 2:38, they might also feel that it's not going to work. There's the man who was in yellow, just taking a drink from his team car, Astolosa. 21 kilometers to go. The climb, it doesn't start, they keep telling me 9 kilometers to go, but it is steadily uphill from now on. This is Spilak, who's now made his move, and he's setting himself a hard way to win a stage of the Tour de France. Well, he goes away. I'll remind you, Cadillac Ride of Your Life sweepstakes, versus.com/Ride of Your Life. You could be on the Tour de France next year in 2010. You could be riding a Cervelo bicycle. You could have a leader's jersey. But you'll need the code word to get on today, which is hammering. As we look down into the valley below, and Spilak has started the move. Look at this. He started a hammer, hasn't he? Interesting. We never saw the move. The camera cut to after he made the move, but he obviously decided it was time to have a go. And as you can see from that shot, we are steadily climbing now. Very fast. Good road surface here. Gutierrez back in the main field. Cancellara. And Jürgen van den Broek is the rider from Silence Lotto. Now, let's see if we can find out a little bit more about the finishing climb and just how... 2 minutes 21. Here is the gap, and it looks as though the way these boys are going, Paul, they are throwing the towel in here. Just Simon Spilak up the road.
Well, I'm a bit surprised, Phil, because they were all working extremely well together, and now all of a sudden nobody wants to ride. And it just it surprises me completely and utterly, just because one guy has jumped off the front of the main pack, why they can't get themselves organised and try and survive. And I'm sure it's quite frustrating to the man in the orange jersey there wearing number 61, Mikel Astolosa, because a few moments ago he was looking at possibly tickling the yellow jersey. Now he may well not even get to the foot of the climb at the head of the race.
Well, they are going under 15 kilometers to go. Spilak has gone under this gap, and he's moving clear by around about 1 minute at that 15 kilometers from this group. The peloton are about a minute and a quarter behind this group at the moment. Looks like they might be getting themselves a little bit organised as we've gone back up to the leader. This is Simon Spilak, who is now making it with a route. The man who was officially eliminated from the race, he finished 45 minutes behind the other day, but the judges took the unusual decision to let him back in. They said that he was hampered by cars being allowed onto the route. He was so far behind. They took a very unusual view, I must say, but he's back, and he's now rewarding them with a chance of a win here. It's a slim chance, but it's a chance.
Well, it's nice that he's been able to pay back the referees by getting himself into the breakaway that's dominated today's stage, and then riding off the front end of the group and leading by a minute. Liquigas, Phil, have done an awful lot of work, but I tell you what, you get an idea of how hard this race is when your heart rate starts to climb up like Brian Van Borg's to just inside of 170 beats a minute. You know that you're starting to get right onto the edge of the saddle, and the wattage is creeping up to the 400 watts mark, and that is very, very hard.
And of course, Van Borg is among the leaders here. He's on the Liquigas team, and he's having to put his heart and soul into the chase right now. 2 minutes 18 seconds the spread, and Cancellara here on the left red jersey, David Moncoutier, Pierrick Fedrigo in the blue. And Astolosa himself, because they're messing about, is trying to ride off the front, and now that's caused a flurry of action.
Well, he obviously was frustrated by the fact that nobody was prepared to do the pacemaking and work together in this group, and Ryder Hezerdal has seen that and said, well, if you guys don't want to work, I'm going across the gap as well. And Jurgen van den Broek says, me too.
Well, we'll see if this causes the reaction that they want to do and cut back in, because it seems a shame to throw it all to the wind now before they've actually started the climb, which is closing in. We're 4 kilometers from the town that takes us right onto the climb. This is Astolosa now. Once he was in yellow, now he's out of it. Now he could do with the stage win for Euskaltel-Euskadi. Getting themselves organised at the back. There is the peloton. They are massing. The boys at the back are in trouble with that tail of a kite just hanging off the main field here. The chase is 57 seconds. The peloton are at 2 minutes 18. We're heading for the mountain now. We'll be there in about 3 kilometers. And then it's showdown. Who will be the first to go from this peloton? It will Open Mao, tremendous work being done here by Fabian Weckmann as he tries now, the former champion of Germany for the past 2 years, in fact, drives on, being swamped by Astana, and now the drive is on by Saxo Bank as well. They all want to hit this together. This is the approach now. This is the town. Just over the hill there is the start of the cable cars. 9 minutes by cable car. It's going to take about 25 minutes by bike.
It's going to take them a lot longer than the cable car. The left-hand bend is not too far away from here, Phil, as Simon Spilak knows that the main field will be charging up behind him. And I did notice that Team Saxo Bank were very attentive at the front end of that pack.
They're trying to launch Andy Schleck into a move today. Schleck needs to make up a little bit of time. Minute 49 down. There's the start, 8.7 kilometers. First man on is Simon Spilak. He was in the breakaway all day. He's got to be tired. These are the remnants of the breakaway. They're going to make the left turn next, but they're holding on at the moment. Ryder Hezerdal is the rider at the back.
He's just managed to come across the gap to join that group of 4 riders who are 40 seconds behind the lone leader here. Ryder Hezerdal must have turned himself inside out to get across that gap, but there'll be a few riders turning themselves inside out when they take this left-hand bend, because this is where the 8.7 kilometer ascent begins in earnest.
Yes, there we are. Now we're on it. Look at the people here of Switzerland and a number of other countries watching the riders here. Pierrick Fedrigo is in the light blue. Here comes the main field now, and it's going to be a crush at the front because the big contenders will want to make sure they are at the front of the pack.
Well, it's Garmin Slipstream seem to have got the control of the front end of the main field there, trying to get their men Christian van der Velde and, of course, Bradley Wiggins around the corner in first place, catching the remnants of the breakaway. This is David Miller on the front behind him. I'm looking to see if it is Bradley Wiggins. It is Wiggins, followed by Christian van der Velde.
Well, they've had a perfect start to the climb here. The Team Garmin Slipstream. David Miller looks over. That's his job done, as Bradley Wiggins is right there. Jens Voigt is there as well, so Carlos Sastre is also here, and Christian van der Velde. This is a race for the top now.
They are trying to set this up, Phil, for a big acceleration for the climbers, and there are so Jens Voigt from Germany hammering on those pedals. He's not worried about where anybody else is up in front of this race. He's trying to make it as tough as possible. Not far away there is Cadel Evans, sitting in about 7th or 8th position, but he's behind a long line of riders from Astana.
Big Jens Voigt here, banging out the rhythm on the front here now. He's trying to pave a way here for the Schleck brothers, perhaps, mainly for Andy. Watch out, though, Carlos Sastre is not. This is the back of the field now. The world champion Alessandro Ballan is going off the back. The polka dot jersey of Franco Pelazzotti is going off the back. So the Liquigas move must be for either Kreuziger or Nibali that we saw earlier on.
Absolutely, those riders know this climb. They're great climbers. Now you can see there was Andy Schleck a little bit further forward. These riders now are just hanging on to their shirt sleeves. They're trying to get rid of that man there in the yellow jersey. He's led this race since we left the Pyrenees behind. It seems like almost an eternity.
We have started the climb. We're looking at Jens Voigt setting up the pace here to try and launch Andy Schleck into an attack. Bradley Wiggins is riding like 2 men here. He's in the orange, the British rider. We never considered him as a climber. He's a track cyclist, and he's in a perfect position now.
Did you see the way Jens Voigt just swung off there? He'd done his job for 1.5 kilometers to make it extremely tough for everybody. He was trying to asphyxiate all of the opposition to try and set set something up for his man, Andy Schleck. These are the riders at the back end of the pack who today have just got to survive, leaving it up still to Team Saxo Bank to set the pace-making on the front. Wiggins does not look ruffled at all. Over his shoulder there is Christian Van der Velde, looking exceptionally calm and collected. Behind him is Andreas Claude, and behind him you can see the tricolor jersey of the champion of Luxembourg, Andy Schleck. Behind him it's Alberto Contador, and then Lance Armstrong.
Nicky Sorensen setting the pace here. A brilliant turn by the young man. He's got one stage win already. The USA flags on the far side. Spilak will be unaware, but he'll know what's going on behind him now. He's continuing to blaze his lonely trail. He's about 26 seconds in front of what is coming up the mountain now. Fabian Cancellara is being picked up. He will see his Saxo Bank teammates now. Will he pick up the pace, or has he got nothing left in those legs?
Don't underestimate Fabian Cancellara. Looking over his shoulder, he will, even it's only 200 meters or 300 meters, he will find something, Phil, in his legs to push it that little bit harder for his team, just to try and set something up for his man in that group, Andy Schleck.
Now a little move here away from the cross here as we start to, this is Heyerdahl going back to the pack now. He's going to see some of his teammates have got themselves in the right position, in particular Bradley Wiggins. Lance Armstrong on the left there has climbed steadily through, and this is becoming a selection. There's about 12 riders here. Andy Schleck is one of them.
Well, I tell you what, Cancellara found something very special there, Phil, looking over his shoulder. He was trying to rip it up. He slowed down to wait for Sorensen to come back to his wheel. They have literally made the first selection of the bike race. Jürgen van den Broek is hoping to survive at 6.5 kilometers to go. Mikel Astrolosa is there, but the train behind is right on them.
Well, this is looking to me now as though the throws of the domestiques and then the leaders are going to have to take over. George Hincapie is here. He's being unshipped a little bit now, so he is in second place overall and beginning to fade away.
Well, Race Radio, Phil, is also saying that Carlos Sastre is in difficulty at the back of this group.
Well, we need pictures of that, but the cameras can't really get. Look at the face on Cancellara on the left of our picture. This is his final help for the team before he drops off the back. Fourth rider down is the man he wants to help, because that is Andy Schleck. Schleck is a very, very gifted climber. Christian Van der Velde right there as well.
Van der Velde right up there in the front of this, but moving up into fourth position there is Andy Schleck, and Cancellara is all over the front end of this. He will push himself until he can't go anymore in an attempt to asphyxiate all of the other climbers. I think, Phil, we're just about reaching the point where Fabian Cancellara, in fact, he's still riding them off his wheel.
Well, they were trying to sort themselves out there, and the Astana boys nearly collided, but now Lance Armstrong has moved forward. Contador just dances right in the slipstream of Astana. The yellow jersey is gone. It's goodbye to the maillot jaune now for Nocentini as they start to drop back, and Nocentini riding behind Gomez there of Bonsavello. But it looks now it's a big struggle. Now we go back to the front here. This is where the moves are about to come. And Frank is the one that's going to start the first move.
Well, Frank now is trying to set something up for his brother at Cancellara. He's put it into reverse there, Phil. He dug himself so deep, and then all of a sudden went out to the back. Contador straight across to Frank Schleck. Armstrong is still there. Andy Schleck is coming across too, still with Bradley Wiggins.
I don't even saw that, but Contador looked for where Lance Armstrong was there to see what was going on, and Armstrong immediately took it. He's number one. Here's Carlos Sastre. We found him now, and he's finding the pace and the speed they've hit this climb is hurting them. Now, who said the climb was easy?
This is not an easy climb, Phil. There we can see going around the corner Frank Schleck trying to set something up for his brother, but the two brothers from Team Astana here are Alberto Contador and Lance Armstrong. Contador looks so easy. He's looking around at everybody to wait and see if there's going to be an attack, and here's his move.
Well, there's the kick from Alberto Contador. Now, Lance will not respond here. It's got to come from somebody like Andy Schleck. Schleck has gone. It's the two great climbers going one-on-one on the climb now. This is the move, and I wonder if this was the plan too. It was started at the top of Arcalys over a week ago. The team didn't like it. He said it wasn't part of the plan, but now I think it is.
Well, I tell you what, that was a savage acceleration. Armstrong now will sit here with Frank Schleck and Bradley Wiggins and see if they've got any firepower to try and nail back that acceleration. Andy Schleck was trying to ride across the gap to the man who has been touted as the best climber in the world, and today, Phil, he is giving us a little bit of a demonstration.
Well, he can do what nobody else can do. He can accelerate, settle down and kick again. Armstrong playing the faithful teammate here as he rides behind with Frank Schleck there. and Bradley Wiggins and Christian van der Velde rather. But now, what are they going to do? They're waiting to see what pans out now as they continue to ride up towards the summit. Look at the cool hand Luke this guy is. He just sits there and keeps his rhythm, then he kicks again.
Well, Phil, this is at 5 kilometers to go, but this race actually gets a little bit steeper at 3 kilometers to go, and that will go into the terrain there, of course, of Alberto Contador. There is Andreas Kloden coming up. He's setting the tempo now for Armstrong, followed by Frank Schleck. It's Bradley Wiggins there, and I'm not sure whether or not we've got Christian van der Velde coming across. I think we have.
Well, just look at the face here now. Kloden has come up to help Lance Armstrong there with the 2 riders now on the front. This is the chase by Andy Schleck, trying to get on to touch with Alberto Contador. Looking at 1:49, he's gaining a bit today. Well, the question now being asked by the chase group. Lance Armstrong looking across, Bradley Wiggins on his back wheel, but he's done a terrific ride, there's no doubt about that. Frank Schleck will be happy because his brother's up the road trying to deal with Contador. Bit of a problem at the moment. Christian van der Velde is here, number 51, the next group down the line.
Number 11, Cadel Evans, is in that group as well. As you can see here, Alberto Contador has decided he wants to lay down the foundations of a win number 2 at the Tour de France this afternoon. Schleck is halfway across the gap, but he doesn't look quite as fluid as he did on the climb up to Arcalis. He's at 16 seconds, and I think the gap is probably going to start to stretch. Armstrong at 29, and the yellow jersey at over a minute.
I don't like the look of Andy Schleck, I'll be honest right now. I think this first day, after 2 weeks of riding away from the Pyrenees, may have altered his physique there because he looked very, very uncomfortable. He tried to match the acceleration of Contador, and that's put him into his red zone. He's going to have to come out of that slowly.
Well, I just remember that time that we came to the Tour of Switzerland and Johan Brunel introduced us to this young man, Alberto Contador. Johan Brunel said, I have never seen a bike rider accelerate on a climb like Alberto can. But not only can he accelerate, but he can accelerate again and again and again. He really is phenomenal the way that he goes up these mountains with such ease.
Well, look up the road there. He can't even see Contador at the moment, Andy Schleck. And, you know, if these boys settle down into the rhythm, Schleck might be coming back here any minute now. Frank is on the left of our picture. Kloden is setting the pace. Armstrong is there. This is the next group down with van der Velde on the back here. And Cadel Evans off to the right as well. They've come up. They've latched on to Lance Armstrong and Bradley Wiggins and Kloden. That's a very select little group now.
Well, the 2 riders from Liquigas were the ones that we expected to be there. Roman Kreuziger, number 93, and Vincenzo Nibali was in that group. A little bit further back, Arrière de la Course. There you can see the yellow jersey is losing time. He's not losing that much time, but he is losing his yellow jersey here this afternoon.
Maxime Montfort is there for Colombia too, but I'm just wondering where Tony Martin is, the white jersey wearer, because Andy Schleck is gaining time in that competition. But this is the man who's ripping the mountain apart with 4 kilometers to go. Alberto Contador. It gets a little bit steeper as we got towards the top. Van der Velde is in trouble here. Just unhitched a little bit. He's looking for more help behind.
Well, he's really struggling. Bear in mind, this man had a nasty crash in the Giro d'Italia, and he's trying to ride himself back. But this man is riding himself back. Number 1, Carlos Sastre, caught out, Phil, by the severity of the start of the climb, using his experience, not panicking, and riding himself back into this race.
So, last year's defending champion at least has got himself into the second best group on the road. But who's going to stop Contador now?
Well, I don't think anybody can stop him because the gap is opening. 23 seconds to Schleck, 42 seconds to Armstrong, a minute 22 to the yellow jersey. Armstrong is riding phenomenally as far as I'm concerned for a man who is at 37 years of age.
Well, we expected a big battle. Lance promised us one. We're enjoying the Chrysler commercial free half hour here. And, well, what a battle it is for half an hour up this mountain. Andy Schleck has got a picture of pain on that face, but he's still trying to peg Contador's escape. Remember, every day's a different day in the Alps. If he's having a bad one today, he can have a good one next time he rides. Andreas Kloden setting the pace here, but this is just a tempo. They don't want to close down on Contador. Lance Armstrong, a big test for him, but he's doing superbly at
one there. Carlos Sastre. Cadel Evans has never been in difficulty so far. On the far side there, you can see Frank Schleck looking over his shoulders. He set something up for his own teammate. It's 45 seconds from Alberto Contador to the Lance Armstrong group, with caught in the middle, Andy Schleck.
3.3 kilometers to climb, and he's still dancing up the hill here. Alberto Contador being chased at 26 seconds by Schleck, 48 by the Armstrong group, and a minute 28 already now. Back to the group Maillot Jaune. Nocentini from a few seconds in front. It's going to be over a minute now. This is Bradley Wiggins, and that is a smart piece of acceleration. This man is a different bike rider these days.
Well, Phil, over the last 12 months since the Beijing Olympics, he's slimmed down by 5 kilograms from August to the start of the Giro d'Italia. During the Giro d'Italia, he slimmed down a further 2 kilograms, and that makes him changes him from being a pursuiter to a climber. That was a good acceleration, but you notice how he was covered there immediately by Frank Schleck.
An offer, a bottle offer there to number 11, Cadel Evans, but Cadel Evans, it just doesn't seem to be able to lift his game here. He's in the hot group, but really he should have been where Contador was when he made his move. Sastre too couldn't handle the speed at the bottom of the hill, but he's coming to his own now, and he's joined this group. There he is, number 1.
Schleck has gone. Frank Schleck has now jumped across. He's trying to get across to his brother there to see whether or not he can assist him close down the gap on Alberto Contador at the front.
Now, is it age at 37 when you can't answer to the accelerations of the younger men? Maybe, but Armstrong's still climbing amongst the best bike riders in the world here, and he's settled in and back with Bradley Wiggins on his shoulder. I think Frank Schleck is desperately trying to reach Andy and give him a hand here.
Well, the flags are out for all of the countries in the world over the head here of Alberto Contador, who's now inside of 3 kilometers to go. And if you look at this pedaling action he's got here, Phil, he is not weakening at all. He is opening up the gaps on everybody else in the Tour de France. The second place rider on the road is Andy Schleck here, number 31, the leader of Team Saxo Bank, and it's his own brother trying to get across to him to give him a hand.
Well, he's made the right move. He's opened the gap. Now, can he climb up? We're looking at the man who's won the stage at Alpe d'Huez here, Frank Schleck. Frank Schleck, rather, if he can just reach, it is completely blowing apart on this climb, and the time is sped right down the mountain. There'll be no seconds at the top now. Lance Armstrong still going to be very high in the overall. Cloden is trying desperately here to keep him in the race, and Martin Brune is getting a bit upset there, the referee, as we watch here the split. And now up front, are the Schlecks going to get it together and perhaps close down a little bit on Alberto Contador?
Well, so far Contador's got 34 seconds over Andy, and I have a feeling before the top of the climb that the way Andreas Cloden is riding there, they may well pull Frank Schleck back into the fold. He's getting a little bit upset with the crowd here. They are getting very close and maybe annoying him.
They're getting a bit too close now, but he's so annoying. He's trying to hold his rhythm here and concentrate and win the lead in the Tour de France, so they don't want to hear people shouting right down his ear. But you know, it's still a good group this. There's still a lot of riders. Cadel Evans has now moved to the front to try and lift the pace. It's only just around the corner where Frank Schleck is, still trying to reach his brother Andy.
Well, they are trying to get together to try and stop the onslaught of the Astana team train here this afternoon, because this was a well-planned attack. It really falls into the norm of a Johan Brunel tactic. Go out on the first big mountain and smack them home. This is Frank Schleck, just on the wheel of Frank Schleck. It's one of the riders from Liquigas, and Bradley Wiggins has got across there.
2 kilometers to go as the camera should pan down to find Alberto Contador about to go underneath it. 2 small kilometers. He hasn't slowed down at all. He is gaining time with every pedal rev here. Andy Schleck tried to reach him, and he hasn't quite done it, and Frank has not reached Andy Schleck yet either. Massive crowd. This climb is 6 kilometers shorter than the climb of Alpe d'Huez, but the crowds on it are absolutely equal to the Alpe at the moment.
Well, this is the group that has come across from the Lance Armstrong group, because now Bradley Wiggins is hooked up there with Frank Schleck, and of course in there as well is Nibali. So they've gone away from the Lance Armstrong group at 2 kilometers to go. Andy Schleck is still looking for more than half a minute.
Well, this is the champion of Luxembourg here, chasing the time trial champion of Spain, and is riding alone. The face here of Bradley Wiggins, but he's confirmed today that he is in this race to Paris, and he is in the race for a high finish. He is one of the best riders in this lead group, and he's very strong indeed. He's now up with Frank Schleck and Nibali, and these boys are still trying to hunt down Andy, and the counter-attack, and Sastre's gone. The start may have killed him, Paul, but he's settled back in now. now.
Well, it was too violent, the start of the climb for him, and it probably was a little bit too violent for Lance Armstrong at 37 years of age, and of course 3.5 years away from the top end of the sport. But Armstrong mustn't panic in a situation like this. This is only the first day of massive big days in the Alps. He's got his teammate there, Andreas Kloden, to pace him up towards the summit of this climb, and he can see these riders disappearing from him one by one. Evans there has missed the acceleration of Carlos Sastre. Never underestimate Carlos Sastre. Those were the words that Lance Armstrong said to me, Phil, before the start of this year's Tour de France.
He goes better and better and better in the last week of any Grand Tour. This is only the first of the last week days of the Grand Tour, with a lot more mountains to come, and the finish won't always be at the top of a hill, but it will be today. This man will be out of the saddle when he comes right up to the line today. Rather a nasty kick just before it, but Alberto Contador now is establishing himself as the leader of the Astana team, and boy, when you see him climb like this, who else could there be?
He is phenomenal the way he gets out of the saddle. As soon as he feels that he's slowing down, out of the saddle he gets once again, lifts the pace up, taking it up to maximum speed, and that's what he's been dreaming of, Phil. The Flamme Rouge, 1,000 meters to go, but at around about 300 meters to go, there is an awful kick up towards the finishing line.
There is indeed, and it's going to hurt, but it won't hurt this man now. It might serve to knock a second off, but I doubt it. Somehow there's a nice close-up of his name on the back of his number 21. Lance Armstrong has been looked after here on the latter part of the climb by Andreas Kloden, and I would say the Astana team are racing into the team lead tonight. The team is decided on the times of the first 3 riders of the team. So Contador, Armstrong and Kloden, that was the way it will be.
Contador now inside of the last of 600 or 700 meters. Chasing him on the road is one man in second position, Andy Schleck, number 31, the leader of Team Saxo Bank. They tried to set it up for this man, but they could do nothing when Alberto Contador came out of that pack. It was an amazing acceleration for this man, but he's kept it going all of the time. He's continued to build his advantage over everybody else.
Well, this is Andy Schleck. He's riding in second place now. About 44 seconds he's lost so far to Contador. Then we have Frank Schleck, Bradley Wiggins and Vincenzo Nibali. They are chasing a little bit further back, but this hill has hit so hard by these boys. It was so difficult to get a wheel. They've hit it so fast, and Sastre took a while to get into the swing of it, but he's doing it now.
Well, Sastre is going to climb up in the overall standings. Armstrong is defending here this afternoon. He hasn't really lost all that much when you look at the riders who he is racing with, Phil, and bear in mind he was 3.5 years away from the top end of the sport. He's doing fairly admirably.
He'll still be right up in the overall, because to Lance Armstrong to Contador is still only just over 1 minute, 1 minute and 20 seconds. So Armstrong can still climb with the best riders in the world. This was a plan I think Astana had. They wouldn't reveal it to us, but we know it now. And really, at the end of the day, if the race came to the bottom together, they had to attack. Look at the crowd here watching the best climber in the world come home. This is a terrific sight for Alberto Contador. He had his wings clipped in the Pyrenees, but he's found them again in the Alps for sure.
Well, he certainly has, and this, I think, is definitely a Johan Bruneel tactic. They waited for this. He wouldn't reveal anything this morning, the Belgian tactician. This is what they were thinking about. They were going to come out on this big mountain stage and lay down the law, and this is what they have certainly done.
And that's the corner which really hurts. It doesn't look like it, but he's got up on it now. He's sat back in the saddle. I've got it, he says. Here we go. There's the pistol shot. Alberto Contador's over the line. He's the next Maillot Jaune of the Tour de France. The time gaps will start now. Here comes Andy Schleck, the champion of Luxembourg. He's establishing a podium finish in Paris for sure. It may not be first place after what we've seen today.
He will also be looking at the white jersey for the best young rider as well, because he's ridden away from Tony Martin on the slopes of this climb up here to Verbier, but he got a bit of a shot when Alberto Contador came out of the pack. This is a very brutal finish here, this last 200-300 meters. He'd be looking at that corner, hoping to reach this last little bit of flat to the finish line.
And look at the clock counting away as well. He's going to come up to the line about 42, 43 seconds afterwards. So he actually closed a little bit on Contador. Here's the race now. Nibali has just eased himself away. Wiggins could finish off a terrific performance today as Nibali, that's why Liquigas worked. He's racing up, and Sastre is going to go for the 4th place as Nibali goes in at 62 seconds. Sastre comes in. No, it's not Sastre. Frank Schleck, followed by Wiggins, followed by Sastre.
And here is
now Lance comes home.
Well, this is a great defending ride by Lance Armstrong here. Just bear in mind how old this man is. He's 37 years of age. He's staring 38 at the end of this year in September with his teammate just in front of him. Cadel Evans comes across the line there to lose himself 125. Andreas Kloden is next in at 128. And there is Armstrong. Not a bad performance, Lance.
No, not a bad performance at all. Lance Armstrong gave his best there. He knows that they'll be heading up the leading team tonight after that performance. As we now see the riders, it'll be Kim Kirkin, I think, coming up the hill now. The team leader of Columbia HTC. Another Luxembourger, of course. Boy, Paul, somebody threw a bomb in that peloton. Just look at this. 1s and 2s on the climb. We're told, of course, is very easy.
Yes, well, I'm not sure it was quite that easy. That's Roman Kreuziger coming in next. He was a rider who finished third up here last year in the Tour of Switzerland. He's lost 2:06 on the day. This looks like Tony Martin coming in next, the best young rider at the start of the day. And also coming in there looks like Vladimir Karpets.
Martin's very close to losing the white jersey there to Andy Schleck. We'll see what happens as he comes up. We're now looking for the rider Maxime Montfort. Also a good ride by him. As we look down, here comes the Maillot Jaune, and Van der Velde is in this group as well.
Well, there's the Maillot Jaune. The yellow jersey will change to a different pair of shoulders this afternoon, as the man who's worn it since the Pyrenees has lost more than 2.5 minutes. The new Maillot Jaune, it doesn't take a mathematician to figure it out tonight, Phil, is going to be Alberto Contador.
This is Matthew Lloyd riding his first tour here, and he's coming in. He's on Cadel Evans' team as well. It's a very, very good result for Matthew Lloyd. That is right amongst the front runners on the day. The gaps will continue to open here. Bryce Faylieu is also coming up. He found a different set of climbers on this climb, Pure Speed Merchants.
Over on the right-hand side in the dark black and red jersey, that is Luis Leon Sanchez, and coming in there as well, Stefan Goubert, 39 years of age for AG2R. Big time gaps already, Phil, on the eve of the second rest day in the Tour de France. They all have to going to have to go away tonight and try and figure out what to do for the rest of the week.
It's going to be a very long rest day for some of these riders. They now know the quality of the front end of the Tour de France, and they know now that Alberto Contador has arrived in his playground, and he'll probably try to do this again before this race ends.
Well, he's opened up a pretty smart gap. I have to take my hat off to Bradley Wiggins, who has proved that he is now going to be the leader of Team Garmin Slipstream, and he's obviously got it right onto his shoulders now that he wants to try and look at a podium position in Paris.
But you know, Lance Armstrong has hung in there, Paul. We're still being treated to a possibility here. Alberto Contador wins the stage, but Armstrong has come up into second place overall behind him to 1-2 for Astana. And Contador wins over 5 hours. There's a long day. Schleck loses 43 seconds. Nibali is in the race. Liquigas did well to pace. 1:03 for him. Frank Schleck at 1:06. Bradley Wiggins loses the same time as Frank Schleck. Sastre loses the same time as those two. Cadel Evans lost a further 20 seconds to Sastre and co. Andreas Kloden just left Lance in the closing meters, a 1:29 gap. Armstrong loses 1:35. Kim Kirkin, he's the spearhead of Columbia. He was in 10th place. Kreuziger is in 11th. Tony Martin 12th at 2:13. He might have lost that white jersey. If he hasn't, they'd be very close to losing it now to Andy Schleck tonight. Vladimir Karpets 13th, and Christophe Lemervel, who was in the top 5 at the start, he came home in 15th place today. Peter Velits in 18th, and the yellow jersey there of Nocentini 19th, losing 2:36 in that group. Christian Van der Velde, he did try and he was in the right places, but perhaps the form not quite there yet. 2:41 down for Christian in 22nd place, and the top 25 completed by Bryce Faylieu. But certainly Brad Wiggins was the star of the Garmin Slipstream team, so I think we can chat with him now at the finishing line.
Fantastic, really fantastic. I don't know what to say, you know. I just do what I do, and it worked, yeah. I don't know what to say, mate.
Did you surprise yourself when the first initial attack went and you were able to go and then go again and attack that group? Was that something you'd planned?
Like, you just got to ask yourself all the time, you know. If it's hurting you, God knows what it's doing to the others. I know I'm in great shape. I just keep thinking that in my head, you know. If I'm hurting, I know everyone else is. So I just kept that in my head, and I knew eventually it'll pay off. So
After a performance like today, does that give you new confidence to do something very special by the end of Paris here?
I just keep going, you know, day by day. I keep saying day by day, but just keep going. I never think too far ahead, and everyone keeps talking to me about what's ahead, what's ahead. That doesn't help my concentration. I just go day by day. I've trained for this mentally as well as physically, and I go day by day. That's what we do. Whatever we do, we go day by day. How can you think 3 days ahead when you've got 2 days before that? That's how you crack, that's how you cock things up. So day
To the sky there as he takes the award here in Verbier, Switzerland, and shortly he'll be picking up a yellow jersey as well. It was a planned attack by Astana today to go very early on to gain as much time on the slopes of this climb, because it suited him down to the ground. A very fast climb indeed, and he was able to settle into his big rhythm. We're looking across the top of the Alps here in high definition. Enjoy some stunning pictures here, and if you haven't got HD, then check your local listings and find out how you can enjoy these pictures. Well, I think we can go. I'll just tell you the weather first before we get to the start. They're on the line, the riders. 78 degrees Fahrenheit, very slight wind. It might be different, of course, on top of the big colds today. Forecast is cloudy, but I can tell you it's extremely muggy down here at the finish in Bourg-Saint-Maurice. 162 riders on the start line today, as far as we know. 180 at the start. Intact. 7 of the 20 teams are all together. We've wired up 3 riders for you again. Same 3 as 2 days ago. Sorensen, Van Borg and Ogier. Right, Paul, we can head right down to the start here. They're on the line.
A little bit of trepidation, I think, Phil, because although they're on the line, you can see the yellow jersey there on the shoulders of Alberto Contador, the white jersey on the shoulders of Andy Schleck. There's always a neutral start to a stage like this, just to get them out of the centre of town. And as soon as they get to the end of the neutralised section, kilometre 0 they call it, the race organizer will take in the flag, and then the race will begin in earnest. And I've read the papers this morning, Phil. A lot of teams have said they want to go out and attack on the very first climb of the day.
Oh boy, great. Well, I'll tell you what, the Livio Martini here is not a regular town at all on the Tour de France route, and we're starting in Switzerland. We pass over the climbs into Italy, and we pass over the climbs again to come back into the finish here in France. It really is a big day for the riders in the Tour, and there's no respite from the start, because right from the gun they start climbing.
They go straight uphill, and they climb up to a height of 2,473 meters. It's an extremely long climb as well. Immediately they come out of the neutralized section, I would expect to see the attacks coming thick and fast, and it's a climb of 40 kilometers, 25 miles, although the categorized part of the climb is only 25 kilometers long. And its steepest part, sadly, Phil, for the riders, is right up at the very top, where it goes in excess of 10%.
Big Fabian Cancellara, the Swiss champion, saying goodbye to his home country now and heading across. He'll know these roads very, very well indeed. He doesn't live too far away. He lives in the city of Bern, which is not that far away, the capital of Switzerland. And, you know, these small climbs he can climb, but today may be a big problem for him. The Col de Grand Saint-Bernard is just literally around the corner. They top it at 40 kilometers into the race, and the climb itself is 24 kilometers or 15 miles. It's an all category, of course. It's an outside category climb, and if they do get going on that climb, Paul, we could have the breakaway on all day.
And it's an ideal route, really, Phil, for a breakaway to succeed on a day like this, because you're either going uphill or down dale. And I have to say, the descent that we did 2 nights ago to get ourselves across here to Bourg-Saint-Maurice is probably the longest climb the longest descent I have ever seen in my life. 31 kilometers and very technical. Bradley Wiggins there in the middle, you might just notice in the Garmin jersey, he is being talked about as the major revelation of the Tour de France this year. We've known him for an awful long time, Phil, with 3 Olympic gold medals to his credit, and I think now all of a sudden he's changed into an overall classification rider.
Well, the flag is on the lead red car there announcing départ. When that's pulled in, then we really do have the départ, the start of the race. But we're neutralized formation here at the moment, and doesn't the peloton look small when it's all bunched up like that? But there are indeed 162 riders in the pack, as they're just not in a hurry to meet their rendezvous today. It gets off to such a hard start, and once they're over the top, they plunge down through Italy, a sprint in Sarp, and Pré Saint-Didier, and then we're back onto the Col de Petit Saint-Bernard. Two major climbs. There they are. The one on the left slightly higher than the one on the right, but we are talking serious height. The Grand Saint-Bernard on the left is 2,473 meters high. We come down only slightly on the Petit Saint-Bernard to 2,188. And then it's literally all downhill right to the finishing line. So risks will be required by the man who wins today.
Well, just going back to that descent at the finish there, Phil, 31 kilometers, 19 miles downhill. And to put it into perspective, if a guy who is an extremely good descender tries to take the risks on that descent, he could actually open up a gap of a couple of minutes before he gets to the finish line here in Bourg Saint-Maurice.
Yes, a clever descender could certainly do that. Now just look at that. Switzerland has really welcomed the Tour de France in Verbier and here in Martigny. Martigny, by the way, is just at the foot of the climb from Verbier, so the riders spending the rest day all over the region here as they now make their way away from Switzerland to the race start. Now, we're looking into the car here with our Geico cam, and this is Johan Brunier. We're in there today. What great things we're going to hear from him as he speaks to Lance Armstrong and to Alberto Contador. He's looking pretty relaxed considering the two climbs. Big test today for all of the riders.
I think we've got a super bonus to have a car camera inside with Johan Brunel this afternoon. I'll just have to get out my Spanish book, though, because he's when he's talking to Alberto Contador, he will be giving information in Spanish. Of course, to Lance Armstrong, he'll be chatting in his English language.
Well, here we are, still rolling out of town. We ride away from Martigny and then we turn right, and you're virtually on the climb of the Col de Grand Saint-Bernard. This is the climb that the motorists would use if they're going into Italy during the summer months only, because this pass closes for a lot of time in the year. It's covered in snow and they can't go through until the snows melt, of course. And the alternative way is to go through the rather expensive, long, by 12 kilometers long, tunnel under Mont Blanc itself. That was built in 1964 because you couldn't go over these roads to get into Italy until pre-1964 because of the snow. So it's very expensive too, believe me. It's just thinking, Paul, in dollars it will be about $60 to go through the Mont Blanc tunnel.
What a big saving in time. Before we start the racing, before the neutral flag comes in, I just wanted to share a nice little anecdote with you. Everybody knows that Hannibal marched across the Alps with his elephants on one of his sieges, but in fact an American poet by the name of Richard Halliburton was so enthralled by that experience of Hannibal that he decided he wanted to try and do it himself. So he brought an elephant here, Phil, and he crossed the Saint-Bernard Pass, and it took him 3 days to get to Aosta on the other side of the Alps.
Good heavens. Well, we're going to get there in about less than 2 hours, I would think, but the flag is in. Christian Prudhomme, remember, we are live with the start of the Tour de France today. We stay with these riders till they cross the finishing line in Bourg Saint-Maurice, so enjoy these images. Well, nobody is in any rush, and normally somebody shoots straight out the pack. Look at that.
Well, just check it out on the right-hand side. There's one or two riders moving up as if to get themselves into a position. There's the first move of the day. It took 500 meters.
Now, is that Bryce Faylieu? No, it isn't who started the move, but it is his teammate who shot off up the road here. Two riders trying to get clear. Everybody overnight will have all come out with their plans in the mind of how to deal with these mountains. People that can't climb these big mountains might want to get up the road now, get a little lead, and hope that they can still be with the leaders when they go down the other side. For the climbers who think they can really win this Tour, they've got to attack today. Cadel Evans, Carlos Sastre, they've got ground to make up. They can't afford to rest any longer. Rabobank's going. That looks like Fletcher, Juan Antonio Fletcher.
I bet you only picked that up because of all the bandages
exactly
all over him.
Right,
he went
Paul.
down very hard. That's what you got to look for, the little telltale signs that allow us to recognize these riders from 1,500 feet in altitude.
Failure, isn't it?
It looks like him, and it looks like Caden Royalson as well, who's decided he wants to get away for his team, Cervelo Test Team. I think in the back of their minds they would like to lay down some foundations for an attack later on by Carlos Sastre.
So they're starting to ease away from the bunch. The reaction has been pretty swift. Astana has got 3 riders on the sharp end of the peloton, just watching what numbers go past them, making a note. If we could see on the handlebars of these riders, you would see a list of numbers which are marked men, and they'll be looking for those numbers and they'll follow them. At the moment, 6 riders going, well, 8 in total, getting away from the field.
Another man jumping out of the main pack as well now. The Team Astana will watch very carefully, Phil, as you mentioned, to see which numbers of riders, which guys are going for. The attack that I was waiting for has just happened. Marco Pellizotti.
That's amazing. Into the tunnel where we were going towards Verbier the other day, and the hill was still to come. Well, the hills are still to come now, and they are most certainly mountains. Well, as they try to establish the break, Six riders here. Well, they look to me as though they might all, in fact, be coming back here. Looks as though we're going to have a little bit of a regrouping here, so we'll take an early break. Begun the 16th stage. It's leaving Martigny now. It's heading to its first big rendezvous today, the giant Col de Grand Saint-Bernard, and they'll top that at 25 miles into today's stage of 100 miles, more or less. Let's pop into the car cam of, with the Geico camera this, of Johan Brunel, the man in charge of Contador and Armstrong. Just see if he's got anything to say today. There he is, concentrating as the race leaves town.
Okay, guys, so here on this flat piece, we do not kill the team on this. Once we get to the climb and we set the tempo, we are going to be fine, don't worry. Aquí en estos llanos no nos desgastamos mucho.
Well, just now, obviously, because a lot of the riders in the team don't understand English too well, he's actually making sure that he gives out the information in Spanish as well.
Which he speaks fluently because he lives in Madrid, in fact, although he's a Belgian himself. We've now got 14 riders who are picking up a lead here, Paul. We saw them getting together as we left town. And looking at the faces here, Franco Pelazzotti has made it. There he is, the King of the Mountains. That's a good move to start with, isn't it? The King of the Mountains heading on to the Grand Saint-Bernard himself.
And David Moncoutier there, number 121. He'd said that he felt a lot better in the Alps. He wanted to try and get a successful long breakaway. He won a stage in the Dauphiné Libéré just earlier this year. You can see the composition moving forward. I've noticed that Jens Voigt has managed to get himself into this breakaway. There's Juan Antonio Fletcher. There's Voigt. In fact, Voigt, obviously, maybe he has a teammate coming across the gap there.
Two by the look of it. Hayden Rolson's in there too. He had a great ride the other day.
Well, in fact, it looks like he's waiting here for Fabian Cancellara. Yeah, and that's why Jens Voigt has sat up.
And Fabian's bringing across here a rider from Garmin Slipstream, I think it is, as he gets onto the line as well.
Tactics are unfolding here, Phil, on this race here, and it looks to me the rider from Garmin Slipstream who was coming across there was Martin Maskant.
Yeah.
Now that's why Jens Voigt sat up to wait for his teammate. I have a feeling today we're going to look at a little bit of a tactical piece of manoeuvring coming from Team Saxo Bank. That's why they've got these two strong boys going out on the attack to join this early move.
So 3 coming up to make it 17 leaders. Let me remind you, our Cadillac Ride of Your Life sweepstakes, Versys.com/Ride of Your Life is where you go. Chance to win a trip for 2 to the 2010 Tour de France, a Cervelo S2 bicycle. You can also win a yellow jersey or a polka dot jersey like we use in the Cadillac Performance Predictions. The word you need to get on board today is descent. And that's very poignant with what's coming up towards the end of the day's racing today. Descent. So we've heard Johan Brunel tell the Astana boys not to panic too much on these flat roads. They're riding a steady tempo here with Gregory Rast on the front and just keeping the breakaway in sight. They will have checked out the numbers.
Look at that. Lance Armstrong and Alberto Contador are chatting together. I wonder whether Johan Brunel, Phil, in the back of his mind, did fuel the press and media story that there was a big rift between these two men today. Armstrong is going to look after Alberto Contador, I reckon.
Be nice to see Bradley Wiggins just peeping into our picture there as well, and Danny Pate. Bradley is up to 3rd place. No British rider, by the way, has ever been on the podium in Paris in the Tour de France, so maybe the big battle either with a breakaway or the bunch. They've all got to fight now. Big Gregory Rast there, looking very confident. His job will be done, Paul, halfway up the Grand Saint-Bernard today, because he's not going to get up there with the team.
Well, he may well on a day like this. It just depends how hard Team Astana decide to chase. They're not very concerned about this group of leaders. Admittedly, it's a large group of riders at 21, but none of them are real serious challenges to the overall classification. So I can see a situation here where Team Astana, if nobody else attacks, they will ride a steady tempo on the early slopes of this climb. Here is the official start to the climb, 24.4 kilometers to the summit, and the local pompier, the local firemen, have come out to give us a nice water slide.
Well, that's just what they want. Not over the riders yet. It's not that hot today, but it is very muggy, the conditions here. I think it's perfect for cyclists going mountaineering like this bunch is today. But it's very muggy down in Bourg Saint-Maurice on the other side of the two cols. And a little bit of picture break-up in this narrow town here now, but the climb is about to start here. The roads were suddenly narrow. They will hairpin rather violently as we climb as well. This is a super climb, in fact, to watch on television. And remember, these pictures are are really superb with the colours of the jerseys. A big break getting away of 21. Best placed in, Vladimir Karpitz. He started the day 5 minutes 56 seconds back. Sandy Cassara, he's having a very good tour, Paul, from France, 6:33.
Well, Sandy Cassara has got himself into a break on a number of occasions. He's not really looking to ride high in the overall classification. His goal in the Tour de France this year is to try and win himself one of the individual stages, and the ones that all of the riders who are capable of want to win is a stage over the mountains. That's why also David Moncoutier of France has got himself into this move. The main field, though, are completely under the control here of Team Astana. Now, they will wait to see if any of the other teams come to the front to do the pacemaking. I wouldn't be surprised, Phil, towards the summit of the climb to see a move coming forward by Team Saxo Bank, because they have been quite vocal in the press about how much they want to rip it up on this stage. But if they've looked at the final climb of the day, as we did the other night when we drove over it, it's a beast of a climb, and I'm actually I'm glad we drove over it, because I would have underestimated how severe that climb was.
Yes, absolutely, and that the little one is only the first category, so it's not quite as steep or as high as the Grand Saint Bernard. And we should see those beautiful dogs, the St. Bernard dogs here. There's the peloton hitting the start of the climb now, because this is where they were created, if you like, in the area of Saint Bernard. And that they used to, and they still are used to look for people lost in avalanches. One of the dogs we saw the other day had rescued 40 people in the snows of the mountain. Away early on, 2 have now just gone clear of those 21, and it looks as though somebody else has joined. It'll be Igor Martinez. The attack came from Pelazzotti, and we might be able to show that happening. So look back here. That's how he did it, Franco Pelazzotti. I don't know, I think he was waving to somebody as if, look, if you're not going to race, boys, I'm going. And they let him go initially. Vladimir Karpitz has joined him, and I suspect the third man to reach him, we didn't see that either, must be Igor Martinez of Euskaltel Euskadi. So that puts 3 riders in the lead now, and an early challenge on the slopes here, the Col de Grand Saint Bernard, which is probably going to hurt the rest of the breakaway. But clearly, and that is Martinez, these 3 going clear would be to keep that peloton with all the contenders together and nobody gets away. And as a consequence, we're seeing the other riders taking their chance.
This is going to be a great battle if these 3 riders stay clear to the top of the climb, because the first 2 men in the overall standings of the King of the Mountains race are in the group.
Yeah. Amazing situation. This is to the rear here at the moment, riders returning to the group. This is Cyril Dessel.
Well, he had mentioned the other day, Phil, that he actually wasn't feeling in great shape, and that must be the indication there that he is not in the best form of his life.
No, he's not, and that's not a good sign. Cyril, the one-day wearer of the yellow jersey, best placed French, he finished 6th a couple of years ago.
You see how Astana, they allow these flurries of attacks to go off the front end of the main field. They don't respond to them at all. They've got their own rhythm that they want to dictate, and they're happy with.
So they picked the tempo up just enough here to bring back these 4 riders. Fast tempo climb at the moment on very good road service. Remember, we're going up for 15 miles now. Almost 9,000 feet. Let's have a peep into the Astana team car with our Geico cam. We should find Johan in there. There he is.
Very good job, Dimi, Gregory. Very good job, boys. We do our own tempo. We just control the peloton here. No need to worry about the breakaway. Very good.
Well, there you are. He's doing what I was explaining moments ago, is just let these guys who aren't in any danger break away, worry about where the contenders are. And the 2 riders he was saying well done to was Dmitry Muravyev and Gregory Rast. They've been the 2 early pacemakers today, and I think you need a little bit of encouragement in your ear, don't you, when you're on the slopes of a climb like the Grand Saint Bernard. So the peloton continues to go mountain climbing today. There is a break. The peloton has now popped out of the shelter, which went off for quite a few kilometers, so we can see the action again now, and it hasn't changed really as we look at the air balloon there just set off to the side. There's the peloton going by. It is led by Astana, and next right up behind them is Garmin Slipstream.
Yeah, they're ready and waiting there, Garmin Slipstream. I think everybody now, Phil, will wait till the final climb of the day, because of course, if you were to attack now, you've got a lot of work to do down the descent into the valley, along the valley road through the feeding zone, and then the start of the final climb of the day. And that final climb of the day, the Petit Saint Bernard, I think is so difficult. We will see some massive attacks coming as we rejoin here the 2 leaders.
Pelazzotti, he's lucky really that Vladimir Karpic has joined him in some respects because he's a strong rider. In other respects, at some stage of the race, the Astana team are going to have to chase Karpic because he's certainly going to become the leader on the road if he continues like this. 5 kilometres to go to the summit now.
Well, there's a lot of people have charged over this pass throughout history, including, of course, the great Hannibal. But in fact, in 1800, the recently appointed consul of the French Republic, Napoleon Bonaparte himself, decided he wanted to go over this mountain because he wanted to go and attack the Austrians. He went over the top of this climb with 60,000 men, 50 pieces of artillery, and 3,500 horses. Now, the other generals said...
That would have been a sight, wouldn't it, on roads like this?
Certainly would have been. The other generals in the army said to him, "What are you taking the artillery over there for? It's going to be a little bit difficult." His response was, "The possible can be achieved by everyone. I want to achieve the impossible."
Well, what a great character he was. He'd been all over France in his time. Now we're looking here at the two leaders. They attacked very early on. Pelazzotti sensing that the break of 21, which he'd formed at the approach to the climb, was not working well together, so he decided to go it alone. Karpic joined him. Igor Martinez joined him. Igor's back in the chase group at the moment, which is still a 16 riders strong, although we're not seeing any pictures of it at the moment. And then the peloton are big calls today. You're either going up or you're going down.
David Miller of Garmin Slipstream and of course of Scotland riding well at the front end of the peloton, looking after the interests of Bradley Wiggins. He will be extremely motivated by the position of Bradley Wiggins in the overall standings, and Wiggins, the more he goes through these mountains, the more I think, Phil, he will get confidence that he can go over them on a regular basis, and that is something that will be tested tomorrow with 5 cols on the menu for tomorrow's appetite.
Oh, it is a really difficult day tomorrow, and for that reason these boys are trying to hold it together today, because tomorrow the body might just give out. There's the two leaders way up to the left now as the camera's pulled back. Then you'll see the first part of the chase group. That's the gap that exists today on the Col de la Grande Saint-Bernard. So once we're down below, it might well all be together through the valley. Not everybody will get back, of course. There's a back bunch now forming behind, quite a way down the mountain.
And that's the group that all of the sprinters will be in, with Mark Cavendish, Thor Hushovd, all the fast men from the flatlands, and they will get together, group together, with a view of trying to make sure that they can get themselves inside the time limit. Number 31, Andy Schleck. He will be biding his time, waiting for the last part of this race. I'm a bit surprised to see him sitting so far back, though.
So am I. He's sitting on the wheel of the British rider Charlie Regalius there.
Bear in mind, I've always said, Phil, the day after a rest day, the body reacts in very strange manners, and sometimes if you've been and done too many press calls, you've not looked after yourself properly on the rest day, you end up paying for it. I don't think that's the case here. There's another move here. This is Mikel Astrolosa going off the front end of the pack, and I'm surprised to see him attacking.
Well, he must be doing it to try and snatch some points, but there's an awful lot of riders. He's trying to reach this group, which is just literally around the corner, with a huge effort here, Astrolosa. The leaders, by the way, at 900 metres from the summit. We can only go where our cameras take us, but that's where they are positioned just now, 2 of them. And this is Astrolosa. We are looking here now at a spot of trouble here for the champion, Fabian Cancellara. He was in the breakaway. He's fallen right through the bunch. The only good news for Fabian is the top is about 1.5 kilometres away on the Col de Grand Saint-Bernard, so he should be okay, and he will get back on the descent. The leaders, Paul, are about, there we are, we're back with them now, about 700 metres to climb.
And you can see the majority of the work has been done by Vladimir Karpic. That's 1 kilometre to go for the rest of the group, and that group at one stage was almost 25 riders. They've slimmed down a bit over the final few kilometres. I think, Phil, we may even see a general regrouping on the descent, because that main field will go down this descent extremely fast.
Almost at the top of the climb, Norwegian flags, the Breton flag of France on the right there. As they go up through the crowd here, the USA flag is flying on the horizon as well. And that can fly to Bradley Wiggins, I suppose, on the American team, and he's sitting 3rd overall in the Tour de France, and so far he hasn't made any mistakes. He's still comfortably around the whereabouts of Alberto Contador and Lance Armstrong, the 2 riders ahead of him overall. These boys coming up to the top of this huge climb today. But by the time they get up there, they've done only 40 kilometres of the 160.
Well, there was a new flag that we haven't seen in the recent past on the Tour de France, Phil, the Japanese flag at the side of the road, because, of course, the two Japanese riders in this race are still firmly in this race. In fact, Beppu Fumiyuka finished in 57th place on the climb up to Verbier the other day.
He's still in the peloton, but Arashiro, he's been dropped from the main peloton just now. He went back about 5 kilometres from the summit. He should get back with a bit of luck on the way down. We're plunging into Italy now, and we'll stay in there for a while, and we'll climb out of it on the Col de Petit Saint Bernard, which I think is a harder climb than this one, but this one's got the higher rating category. There's the face of Jens Voigt here as he pushes on.
Well, Jens Voigt is trying to drag this group over the top just in front of the main field, but I can tell you, Jens, the main field led by Astana are probably only 45 seconds behind this group. But Jens, he's got in the back of his mind that little plan. He wants to be off the front of the race when we get to the final climb of the day, the Petit Saint Bernard, because they are going to try something, I think, Team Saxo Bank with Frank and Andy Schleck.
Well, I don't think Carpets will spoil the party at the top here, because he's not challenging for the King of the Mountains. I think he'll allow maximum points of 20 to go to Pelazzotti, who looks a little bit tired just now as he kicks up for the final metres.
Well, I'm not surprised at all as they come up to the summit, but I think Pelazzotti will get himself maximum points just around the corner there. He's just looking back to see if there's going to be any reaction. There's no reaction for Carpets, so another 20 points in the bag for this man, Franco Pelazzotti.
Yes, that was honourable by Carpets there. He may as well let this climb it, and it was Pelazzotti's attack that got him away from the group. So job well done so far for Franco Pelazzotti today, and Carpets need to get together now. Here comes Jens Voigt trying to keep them away from the Armstrong-Contador group in the hope that they will pull away on the descent. Pieric Fedrigo is also here, the rider that won the other day down in Tarbes. The other day, it was 2 weeks ago.
It seems like a long time ago. A lot of teams starting to get interested in that Frenchman, including Team Saxo Bank, because they're impressed by the way that he's got the power to go into these breakaways on numerous occasions. From the front to the back for David Moncoutier, there, number 121. He was in that breakaway a little while back. He was dropped from the breakaway, which is a surprise to me, and now he's being picked up by the main field.
He also picked up Maxime Bouet then as well. He's also dropped from this lead group and back into the pack. Voigt is heading up for the sprint.
Well, watch out for the sprint here as well, because Pieric Fedrigo, Phil, is also well up in the overall classifications in the King of the Mountains, and as we speak, there he goes.
To be expected as he goes for third place over the top of the climb. Nice piece of riding that by Fedrigo. He's having a very good tour.
Third place there was a rider from Euskaltel Euskadi. I wonder if it was Egoy Martinez, but there are 3 riders in there.
But just ahead of Fedrigo.
Yeah, there are 3 riders in there, in fact, but Fedrigo did get himself to third place.
That's third place for Fedrigo, and Egoy Martinez, I'm sure, went to try and pick up best of the rest there, because he's just about holding Pelazzotti in his sights. Look at this, the Astana army stomping through the Alps here. On the far right of our picture there is also Bradley Wiggins, riding very, very well with a teammate, and I think it's probably Van der Velde alongside him. Davy Miller's also in the group, so he's ridden well today, inspired perhaps by the high place overall of Bradley Wiggins. The whole of France is talking about the British rider right now, of how he's improved so much this year. So as we're over the top of the Col de Bernard, the Astana boys are still in control as they now begin to the Alps. Now, if you're just joining us, because this is our usual time, don't forget we had extended coverage today of all of stage 16 of the Tour de France over its 99 miles in these beautiful pictures of high definition. And the rides have just gone over the top of the Col de Grand Saint Bernard, 40 kilometers into the day, or 25 miles. I think we can show you the result now. There we are. Pelazzotti, the king of the mountains, and he really is a champion, isn't he? 20 points for him. Carpets of Fedrigo Cassar. The overall now, he's got a 28-point buffer over Martinez, who didn't get into the sprint results there. Fedrigo was third, Felu was fourth, and Astaloza lies in 5th place. Now, let's catch up with the boys now, and if you look at this very closely, you'll go dizzy, believe me. These boys are now descending the Col de Grand Saint Bernard down. We are on Italian roads. Now, don't forget the brakes, boys. We are on Italian roads as we drop down towards the town of Sarre now. Well, these are the dizzy moments of the world, Paul, as you were a great descender, but you've got to be so tense now and vigilant.
You don't even think about it. You're completely controlled. You're completely accentuated to the movement of your body. You've got to look at the corner before you come into it. You look at the lay of the land. You don't actually look straight in front of you. You look maybe 50 or 100 meters in front just to see if you can guess how the road is going to unfold in front of you. And another thing you use is you use the motorbikes. The motorbikes that precede you, you can tell by the moment that the guy puts his brake light on, you know it's a corner that you need to back off coming into. If he doesn't touch his brakes, you know you can go around it at full tilt.
Can't afford to make too many mistakes, though, but at least this road is guarded. So the leaders went up it the quickest up the Col. They did it in 66 minutes today. That's an awful long time to spend climbing, even so. But that's Pelazzotti and Karpitz. They set the trend up the mountain today with a climb of 66 minutes. At one stage, though, they were pulled back by the Astana team. Up until now, Contador and Lance Armstrong are riding side by side. They appear to be the best of friends today, and the team is doing the work of just keeping an eye on all of the other contenders. So it's gone according to plan so far for Astana today, but they all know that it's the last climb of the day when the gauntlet goes onto the floor.
Certainly it's going to be quite tricky. Now, just looking here, this looks like Popovic, and he's slowed down a fraction. He's seen that he's opened up the gap. There's no reason at all for Team Astana to go like madmen down this descent. They just want to go down this descent nice and safely, and I think they want to actually back it off a fraction, Phil, to maybe give a chance to riders like Gregory Rast and Muraviev to come back into the main field.
Well, there's Cancellara's got back. He was just unhitched about a kilometre from the summit, so it was a short chase back on. Hasn't quite made it yet, but here he comes. This man who never says die is now coming back onto the field, a champion of Switzerland, and he's a great champion.
Well, there was a poll, Phil, amongst all of the team managers because of the descending being such an important factor on today's stage, to figure out who the team managers in this race thought were the best descenders in the world and in the pack. And they voted, first of all, for Thor Hushovd, who uses his downhill ability to get himself back into the race on many occasions. Number 2 in their list of favourites was the man we just watched there, Fabian Cancellara.
Well, remember how well he rode in the time trial in the Tour de Suisse, which he won. He took a lot of chances too on the downhill sections. No, he's got a lot of skill. We've seen him in action already on this year's Tour de France in the same boat. Ooh, nice tight fit on the inside.
Well, you saw how he went up through the inside there, coming round Sergei Ivanov, a champion of Russia, going around that corner. The best way to go around these corners is to ride at the front like these guys are here in the first 3 or 4 positions, because you can pretty much trust and rely on the line that the man in front of you is going to take around the corner, whereas if you're in 10th or 15th, it can be dangerous.
Well, just keep an eye on things today, but I'll tell you, the last descent is very, very dangerous. It's on narrow, hair-pinning roads through woods. It'll take a lot of skill from our cameramen to keep up with the boys on the way down, but that's still to come. At the moment, we're going down the Col de Grand Saint-Bernard, so we'll take a break and rejoin us. Got plenty of movement down there. In fact, Astana are driving on a little bit now. They're just holding inside 3 minutes the gap. We're halfway down the descent of the Grand Saint-Bernard. Once we're down, we'll be across the valley of Aosta in Italy, and then we're back up the other big one, which will take us over to the finish in France. 2:51 the gap. These two boys are racing extremely strongly. They're certainly not waiting for anybody.
I think they've got the bit between their teeth this afternoon. They realise they've got a good chance. They're not really dangerous in the overall scope of this 3-week bike race, as we see there the advertisement for the Valle d'Aosta, the gateway to Torino. It's actually a real big agricultural part of the world as well, is the Valle d'Aosta, and it's the gateway from Italy into France, because at the top end of the Valle d'Aosta is the tunnel of the Mont Blanc,
which was built because you can't get over the Grand Saint-Bernard in the winter months because of the snow on the top. So they built the tunnel in 1964. Otherwise, it is a long, long way around the Alps to come up the other side. Well, this is the group coming back all of the time. Riders are descending quickly, rejoining the places in the breakaways.
Hayden Ralston, who was in the breakaway early on, got caught by the Astana-led group, dropped before the summit, took a few risks on the descent. His nickname, by the way, is Roly, as I was corrected on his the pronunciation of his name just the other day.
There's a group on the far left. They'll be next to join. The peloton is regaining its size here. Little bit expected, because the main pack, led by Armstrong and Contador's team, didn't really drive it as hard as they might. They wanted a reasonable climb here. The next one will be different. So, as we continue now, Astana's got themselves back on front. Case of deja vu. Now they have a yellow jersey on the team. First time in this Tour de France, of course. But the team is well used to leading them. He's heading through the valley then. So the big strong man who sets the pace is almost back in the pack. All going to plan at the moment. Well, just looking here, the driving here of the group up front. 3:47 is the spread. Gregory Rast is about to rejoin the peloton at the back, which will put all of Astana at full strength again. Nicolas Roche going through. He really is riding an extremely good Tour de France.
Yeah, this group here is losing ground on the two leaders. They're 1 minute and 45 seconds behind, but they are in fact 2 minutes in front of the main field, and that could be a good operation for Mikel Astrolosa. We've seen him on the attack on a number of occasions. He's 19th overall at the start of the day, looking for 5.5 minutes, and ouch, it hurts a long day in the saddle here.
It does. This is Jose Angel Gomez stretching out his back for Cervelo.
Pedro Delgado talked to me about this rider a couple of years ago. Delgado himself a winner of the Tour de France, and he said that this young guy is an extremely good climber, and he can see a big future for him in races like the Tour de France. His presence here, I think, in this breakaway group, Phil, again, is to lay down the foundations for an attack from Carlos Sastre later on in the day.
It'll be interesting to see whether those two are trying to hold the whole race off down through the valley across the roads of Italy before we get onto the climb, because I would have thought it would be better to let these boys up and push on in a big group. This is life at the back here. Just watch it. I was just wanting to see an Astana rider go back there in case Gregory Rast rejoins, but it does seem we're all getting together now as we head on to flatter roads for the moment. This is getting down to the bottom. Tony Martin here has managed to get back into the group, so he's done okay. 88 kilometres to the finish. The gap is going up now. For the first time, they've shut down. It's 4 minutes to the two leaders.
But also, I did notice that Astana had one of their drop riders recover and come into the pack, Gregory Rast. Now, that's important because he can... It's amazing how much you can recover when you're a bike rider. If you're not a great climber, you will get dropped on the climb. But once over the top, all of a sudden, you feel that much better. And that's why I think we'll see Gregory Rast come to the front and start setting the tempo. They don't really need to go too crazy in this part of the course, because I think the leading group of two and the group behind will lose an awful lot of time, Phil, on the final climb of the day. That climb is in excess of 20 kilometres.
No, it's a real tough climb, and it's a very fast descent. Rast has just come on to the back of the pack, and Johan Bernal has got all of his team together again now. So it won't be long before Greg gets back up front and does his work for as long as he can. Road suits him now for a few kilometres, and then he'll go off the back again on the climb of the Little Saint Bernard.
Climb of 22.6 kilometres to be exact, and these two leaders are hoping that there's not going to be a major reaction behind. Carpets looking for around about just inside of 6 minutes in the overall classification, and a good ride by him today could launch him right up in the standings.
Well, I don't think they'll allow it to run, but you never know, because they're so afraid of what is coming tomorrow. They might try and make this hardly a day off, but at least save some energy for tomorrow. Now you can see the little kind of a bandage on his nostril there, but in fact it's for holding his nostrils wider so he can breathe a little bit easier. They don't seem to be as popular as they used to be, do they?
No, I think it's one of those fads that the riders went through probably about 10 years ago, and maybe this guy, because of the fact that he actually wanted to go from the start this morning, he probably just wanted to make sure that he had everything working to absolute perfection. This is right at the front end of the main field, Mikel Astrolosa, and he's actually been back to the team car to bring on board drinks for everybody else in the group.
Well, they've got a couple of riders up here as well. Astrolosa, who's joined this break with a lone chase. Just before the summit of the Grand Saint Bernard, he went off the front. If they were to catch those two, he would be the highest placed rider in the breakaway, because he's only 5 minutes 37 seconds behind.
That was a very impressive move by Astrolosa. He saw that the gap was down to around about 45 seconds on the slopes of the climb, and he crossed it very quickly before they summited the Col de Grand Saint Bernard, and rejoined the gap. And then on the descent, as we've seen, the gaps have started to stretch out once again, and that will give him an advantage of starting the final climb of the day ahead of the main field.
53 miles, 85 kilometers to go. Another warning for you about our Cadillac Ride of Your Life sweepstakes. You log on at versus.com/Ride of Your Life. Chance to win a trip for two to next year's Tour de France or a Cervelo S2 bicycle. The word you need is descent. That's the code word of the day. Saxo Bank have chosen to send up is Jens Voigt. He's the advanced scout for the Saxo Bank team. Andy has got to attack if he gets his opportunity. Cadel Evans has got to attack, and Sastre has got to attack today to try and gain a few minutes back if they can. Tough call. About to disappear down the tube again here. Guaranteed no pictures any second now, but there they go back into the granite rocks around here.
Well, that chase group has come down to 57 seconds now, so I would think the team manager has convinced Pellizotti to sit back and wait. I'm not sure if he's had a word with this man on the front, but I would think that Carpets, once he gets the nod that Pellizotti is no longer working, he will also back off and wait for that group. That would probably be the most sensible tactical move.
I think it is, because Pellizotti, being the best climber, can probably be free to fly again at the next point. Here we come out the other side of the tunnel. And this is the Astana-led peloton, but because they've slowed at the front to try and await the arrival of that chase group, which is 16 riders strong, these boys are coming back as well. 4:34 now.
Garmin lining up in the second row here, if you like, first led there by David Miller, Danny Pate, Julian Dean.
I keep thinking we're commentating on a British rider with a possible podium finish in Paris, which has never been known in my time as a commentator or your time as a rider come commentator. Tommy Simpson nearly gave it to us. He finished 6th. But now Wiggins sitting there in 3rd place, the most unlikely direction we thought for a man of Bradley's known track record, literally a track record, to come to a Tour de France and be at this stage of the race, 6 days from the finish, in 3rd.
It's quite remarkable, really, to think the man who has built his reputation on the track on a 4-kilometer event has managed to turn that into the ability to climb up these mountains for 1 hour. But just discussing with his team manager a couple of days ago, when he was thinking about bringing Bradley Wiggins across to the team, he wanted to know whether or not he rode his individual pursuits in an aerobic fashion or an anaerobic fashion. Aerobic meaning you push yourself into a little bit of oxygen debt, or whether you anaerobically can work for a long period of time. And he was able to, once he'd figured out the physiological attributes of Bradley Wiggins, he was able to change that 4-minute effort into a 40-minute effort and into a 1-hour effort. Also, I think more importantly, Phil, as we look at him here, he's a slimmed down Bradley Wiggins. He's lost on average over about a 3-year period something like 9 kilos total. 5 kilos he lost from the Beijing Olympics up to the start of the Giro d'Italia this year, and then he lost a further 2 kilos in the Giro d'Italia. He also used the Giro, the Tour of Italy, to train himself to pedal. It's a different pedaling action that you adopt when you're going up big mountains for a long period of time, and he used the Giro to perfect that pedaling style.
I mean, just to help you out, if you don't know kilos and pounds, that's 20 pounds in all he's lost, or that would be about 1.5 stones. Looking up the valley road here now, literally about 2 or 3 minutes ago, the 2 leaders were joined by the chase group, and they had a smile and a chat with each other, and now they're all together.
I think that was a sensible tactical decision by the team managers, probably of both of those riders, Phil, to sit up and wait for that group, because that's a very large group of riders. It's now 18 riders in strength, and it's no good, I don't think, just riding into the wind on a long valley road like this, especially with the vicious climb that we've got towards the end. And they'll be able to now get to the start of that climb in much better conditions and maybe recuperate a fraction from the efforts they've already put in this afternoon.
Some incredible architecture there with the Autostrada passing over the Tour de France right now. As remember, we're still on Italian roads. We've got to climb over the mountain to get back into France. Saint-Didier with the leaders of the Tour now. And the breakaway has swollen up to a group of 18 riders, as we've now just more or less started the climb of the Little Saint Bernard. Now the question is, what will happen with the break? We've got two races now, haven't we, Paul? We've got the race for the win from this group, possibly, at 4:25, and we've got the race in the pack where the leaders have got to attack each other to gain time.
Yeah, we've got the race within the race for the individual stage, but I have a feeling with the time gap that they've got, Phil, at the 4-minute mark, that may well not be enough to stay off the front end of the main field, because you are going to see a big reaction behind it. Everyone has said that they want to try and attack Armstrong and Contador. I think they may well try and reform the top end of the overall classification. At the start of the day, let's not forget, Contador leads his own teammate Lance Armstrong by 1 minute and 37 seconds, but behind there's a lot of riders still very close to getting themselves into the top 4 or 5. Bradley Wiggins will be looking to see whether or not he can get a bit closer to Alberto Contador, or maybe leapfrog Lance Armstrong on this climb. Andries Kloden, watch out for Kloden this afternoon, because he's been very cannily held back by Johan Brunel, and he's been riding in the shelter of the main pack for most of today's stage.
On the bench at the moment, but I feel that if no one attacks the Astana group, they'll do nothing today. They're trying to get themselves a rest.
Astana do not need to attack.
No.
They are in pole position. They've got 1st, 2nd and 4th overall. They lead the team race. As far as they're concerned, it's up to the others to bring the racing to them.
Well, of course, Cadel Evans does need to attack because he's over 4.5 minutes down. Sastre must attack. He complains about the press saying bad things about him, but he is anonymous. He's got to come out and attack. And the Schlecks, I think, if they can see their chance, will also, as the group here pushes on at the moment at the front. And they're getting to grips now with the climb. And I don't think they'll ride up this very long as a group at all. This is Verdugo on the front who's setting the pace. Ten Dam is in 3rd wheel. And that's Fedrigo in 2nd. But they've really hit this at a fast speed, 19.5 kilometers to the top of the climb. If they keep that tempo up, they'll explode the group.
Well, I think that's what they're wanting to do, and not surprisingly enough, a lot of presence at the front of that group as well from the riders in the orange jersey of Euskaltel Euskadi, although it is putting one of the Euskaltel riders into a spot of difficulty. That's Igor Anton just sitting at the back. Just having a look to see if I can spot the... well, that is the climb that we're about to make our way over the top of, Phil, and that really is, I suppose I'd have to say, an Alpe d'Huez type climb.
Well, it does look like Alpe d'Huez. Somebody's thrown a piece of string down through the forest there. It's just all hairpin bends. That's the way up, and of course, we've got the way down as well, which is equally as twisty and going to be a real challenge. But there is a very, very nice view of one of the biggest mountains here in the Alps.
Well, I can't believe we drove up that. Thank goodness it was dark.
Well, I did spend most of it sitting on the floor of the car. I remember that bit. But just looking down there, the peloton are climbing it so rapidly. Just look at the speeds. They snake the way up here. Flat-out tempo riding. Muravyev is the man on the front, keeping tempo for now until he can do no more, and then he'll drop off.
Well, just sitting at the back of the Armada. This is the back end of the group. Arrière du peloton. This is what happens when you come to the final climb of the day. These guys now pretty much confident they'll get inside of the time limit. This is the Autobus. You might just have noticed around the corner there, Thor Hushovd, one of the big sprinters. He'll look and see how the group is forming and then sit up and try and stay in the pack.
Also noticed coming down there in that little group with Hushovd was Brett Lancaster, the Australian. He rides on the Cervelo test team these days. He's also unhitching. There's the champion of Italy riding alongside the world champion. Tozzato alongside Balan. They're going back. This is the group containing. That's Brett on the right. Brett Lancaster, there's Hushovd.
And Gregory Rast, a job done for the day, and now all he has to do is get over this climb as best he can and try and stay in with the Autobus. You always have somebody called the driver in the Autobus like this as well, somebody who sets the tempo, which is a tempo comfortable for all the other riders to stay there. There's a real fraternity of being in the Autobus. It's a question of survival. You know you're not going to win the Tour de France, but you do want to stay in, you do want to get to Paris, and it looks as if Pipo Pozzato is going to be the driver on this occasion.
Here, Jürgen van den Broek straight onto the back wheel here. I think it's Verdugo who's launching the move, and Van den Broek trying to follow him.
Well, Van den Broek really is.
From the back.
Van den Broek really is turning out to be a very good look. You see the move there by Franco Pellizotti, immediately covered by the rider from B-Box Bouygues Telecom.
They're hitting each other hard here now because they all know if they can get a lead by the top, the man that can descend over the other side will win the day. And the guys who are over a minute behind may not bridge a minute on the way down to the finish.
Well, there's not very much time going to be lost by riders on the descent unless you take a lot of risks, and it is the kind of descent where you can take risks. Pelazzotti is being extremely attentive, so too is Peric Federigo. He's a rider just sitting behind the leader of the King of the Mountains classification.
Looking down on the Saxo Bank, Astana will have expected this. They'll be very wary now that put two, in fact only one of the Saxo riders can stay there at the moment, and it looks as though Cadel Evans has gone round to go up towards the front. I think Cadel might try one of his attacks here, but he really should jump from below. Now, where is Menchov? Losing ground or just sitting in? Losing ground.
Not a great tour for Denis Menchov, the winner of the Giro d'Italia early on this year. He's never really found his legs, and in this day and age it is very difficult to try and ride at two Grand Tours to win them. And Denis Menchov was in great form in May, June, and to hold that form through to the month of July is a tall ask.
Matthew Lloyd also dropping off there. This is the rear end of David Moncoutier. He is also being dropped here. So that lifting of the speed has hurt some big names just now as we rapidly chase down the peloton, which is getting smaller by the kilometre. So we're looking now at the rear of the peloton. Who's going to be next to go? Better watch out if your name is Tony Martin here. But we'll take one more break and then we're with the race for a full half-hour commercial. The day, you know, it's 3 minutes 19 seconds back to the Maillot Jaune of Alberto Contador. All of that bunch still seemingly in control, but we do have two Saxo Bank riders and one has changed places. I think it was Gustav Larsson who fell back. I'm not sure who's come up, but you can see the white jersey of Saxo down there. They are definitely trying to set something up for Andy Schleck, and Schleck is waiting as long as he can before he puts in an acceleration.
Nicky Sorensen now up to the front, really giving the full pain. Behind him you can see Haimar Zubeldi. He's a great climber, finished in the top 5 of the Tour de France on 2 occasions. Tony Martin, Phil, is losing his dream here of the white jersey, as too is David Miller, number 56. Miller will have done a lot of work for Bradley Wiggins. Now all he's going to do is survive the last few kilometres of the stage.
They've still got 10 kilometres to the summit, and so it's a little bit early to lose ground here. As we look here at the face of Tony Martin, who was the white jersey leader for nearly 2 weeks. He lost his white jersey to Andy Schleck. This is David Miller, who's worked very hard up front as well all day to try and keep Bradley Wiggins in position. It's job done for David. He has done that. Wiggins is still right there. He's now going off the back, and the chase has been the two Sorensens, not related by the way. Chris Anker and Nicky are setting the pace here to try and launch Andy Schleck. Yellow jersey down there, still being worn today for the first full day by Alberto Contador. Danger on the horizon, Paul, because Saxo Bank are playing a card here.
Well, the Schleck brothers pretty much announced that they were going to make a move on the slopes of this climb. Andy Schleck there, you can see sitting on the wheel of the yellow jersey. Alongside him his brother Frank, and behind them Vincenzo Nibali. Armstrong right up there. The majority of the work, in fact all of the work over the last 10 minutes has been done by Team Saxo Bank. Now that's not a surprise, because the 100% of the effort they're putting in here is to set something up for a little later on the climb, when I'm sure Frank and Andy will come out to play.
Well, Andy Schleck, they're trying to weaken the attacks, and look how they've reduced this peloton. There's about 15 guys left here now, and Astana have lost a number of their players. This is to try and destroy the opposition and springboard Andy Schleck up the mountain. Schleck is in the white jersey just off to our right here. He's sitting in 7th place. The two Sorensens are literally destroying themselves here. They'll fall away soon, and then Andy must go.
They have to ride this tempo to make it extremely difficult for the other guys in the race and put them right on the limit of rupture. Before then they will expect a big attack to come from their team leader. There you can see job done for one of the Saxo Bank riders. He's slipping away now. He went for as long as he could, and then when you pop, you just pull off and try and recover a little bit to get yourself into a rhythm just to survive.
Well, I think that was a nice little move there, but quickly Astana have only got 3 riders left, including Armstrong, to protect Alberto Contador. He hasn't been tested at all today. Schleck is riding on Contador's wheel in a white jersey.
Well, just behind, just in front of Alberto Contador is the rider from...
no,
it's not. It's Clodin. Armstrong is in front. Yeah, Armstrong is in front of Cloden. They've still got a lot of firepower, Phil, on board with Team.
No doubt about that. Everybody beginning to look at each other at the moment. Stefan Guber taking a good look at Astalosa. These two riders, I think, have stretched the elastic, and Jurgen van den Broek is looking exceptional.
He is phenomenal, and I think we may well be looking at the next Belgian stage race star, because, as I just said, Phil, he was 7th overall in the Giro last year. He is a great climber, and as you can see here, he's riding away from this group, and this could be the ideal thing for Team Silence Lotto to actually raise their morale. On the front end, you can see, you can almost feel the pain by looking at Chris Anker Sorensen there. This is the move now coming from Gomez Marchante, the rider from Cervelo Test Team in the leading group. He's seen how dangerous this move is with Armel Moinard coming across.
Slow down, I can't get on.
Yeah.
But he's got on now, and they're going to work together, go across the gap together. It's do or die, these efforts now, because if those two boys, the two best climbers in the group, do get away, it's curtains for the stage as well as the climb at the top. Van den Broek, Paul, he's 26 years of age, but he's never won a race, you know. 7th in the Giro is a great result.
It certainly is, but do you remember
good tonight?
You remember the team that first picked him up, though, as a professional? It was Dirk de Mol, and they was brought into US Postal Service, and they found some pretty good riders over the past, including a certain Tom Bonin as well.
All moved on. He stayed 3 years with the American setup, then he came across to the current team he's with, which is now called Silence Lotto. It used to be called Predictor Lotto. Here it goes. This is what we expected. It had to come. He's seen his teammates do it. Now the pace is going to lift. Andy Schleck is on the offensive. Nibali is on behind him. Now, what's the answer? They've split the peloton.
They've split the peloton. Frank Schleck is there in 3rd position. Alberto Contador is there, and so too is Andreas Cloden.
Wiggins has gone with them.
Lance Armstrong is missing.
Well, he's going to defend. Maybe he just couldn't lift his pace just at that moment, but now Andy's looking at the damage done. Bradley Wiggins has ridden across this gap. He doesn't look under pressure at all at the back.
Frank coming up there to take over the pacemaking at the front end of that group as well. There's a lot of riders still fighting in this breakaway, and all of a sudden with that acceleration, Phil, it's see what it's done to the main field.
Well, it's every man for himself now. These boys have just been blown away by a tornado. There is Lance Armstrong right at the front. He's riding on the back wheel of the other Luxembourger, Kim Kirken, but he knows the yellow jersey has gone forward. Lance is not going to lift the pace. The yellow jersey in the right place. He's marking Andy Schleck. I'm amazed at Bradley Wiggins. He's looking. Is it Bradley Wiggins?
Yep, it is
when
Wiggins.
He changed his face, and I can't recognise him anymore.
Well,
he's right there.
You recognise him with the orange sunglasses on. Frank Schleck now has taken over the pacemaking. He wants to dish out the pain. They want to try and isolate Alberto Contador. Contador still has a teammate in this group, and it's the man they rested during the course of the day today, Andreas Cloden. Don't forget, Cloden has finished 2nd overall in this race. They've got rid of Lance Armstrong, the race referee there, trying to get the gap away from the motorbikes.
I'm not surprised. Now the Schlecks are dishing out the old 1-2. It's Frank at the front at the moment, looking to see where Andy is. They'll try and refresh Andy. This is Cadel Evans here. The move has gone. I would say, looking at this, Cadel is not on a good day again. He's trapped in the 2nd of the best groups here with Lance Armstrong. Now Andy Schleck has had to take up the pacemaking himself. Nibali is doing nothing about it. I'm not surprised that Frank Schleck is shouting at his brother there, or saying something to him.
Well, Frank Schleck and they're side by side now. A little bit of a chat going on between the two brothers, and they will continue to throw caution to the wind here. They've got the gap they want over all of the other contenders.
Well, there is number 1, Carlos Sastre. Now, where is he? Going off the back, I think, at the moment. As Schleck kicks in again, we're watching our commercial-free half-hour thanks to Chrysler, and we're looking at Andy Schleck really drive the race here now. Contador's up for it. He's moved into 2nd place. Wiggins is there in 3rd. Armstrong could lose 2nd overall. Well, that's the big thing, isn't it, Paul? Armstrong could be losing his 2nd overall to Bradley Wiggins. A man in trouble at all.
He's not in any difficulty at all. He's covered every acceleration. You do notice, though, that Andreas Cloden is there. Cloden could also be moving up into 3rd place overall tonight. Armstrong has lost himself around about 32 seconds at this point. He's probably not too concerned. He's going to allow all the other riders in this group to do the pacemaking.
So Lance Armstrong in difficulty now on the climb of the Col du Petit Saint-Bernard, but up front now the yellow jersey is under attack by the white jersey of Andy Schleck.
Yeah, but you have a look at the riders who are in the company of Lance Armstrong here. Christian Vande Velde, #1 Carlos Sastre, all the other big names including Cadel Evans are in that group behind. I think this year these are the top men in the Tour de France. Frank and Andy Schleck are going to be the king of the Alps, but maybe the king of July is going to be the man in the yellow jersey.
Well, the big names have changed a bit now. The chase group has got the main contenders in. Armstrong's now in the #4 chase, the peloton with Sastre. He's out of it at the moment and losing more ground. And this looks as though we've got a problem here for Mikel Astolosa as well. Back up to the leaders. The clock, they've actually, the main chase of the white jerseys, pulled 5 seconds back on these two, but that's not catching them quick enough. 6 seconds now.
I don't think it is catching them quick enough. In fact, Mikel Astolosa, Phil, is riding across the gap here. He's an older rider. He's an experienced professional. He knows how to ride a race like this, and he knows how to ride a mountain to his own advantage, and he's waited for the accelerations to come. Once the accelerations have stopped, he's got into his own rhythm, and he's slowly clawing his way across that gap.
Well, he's got his rhythm up here now, and he's riding extremely strongly. Remember him on the Grand Saint-Bernard? He put in a terrific acceleration just before the summit, and he reached the breakaway, and now he's trying to stay with the two leaders. These guys know that the guys who go over the top should win the stage, because it's all literally downhill to the finishing line, but they'll need about a minute or so, I think, on anybody else. Now Andy Schleck is setting this relentless tempo. Frank is with him as well. Contador's looking around at the countryside. He's in no trouble at all.
Well, this is not a way of getting rid of Alberto Contador. If Andy Schleck wants to get rid of Contador, he's got to keep throwing accelerations at him. You're not going to grind him down at all. Frank Schleck is trying to. Bradley Wiggins is just on the defensive, and I think, Phil, they will start to get a little bit concerned about the position of Bradley Wiggins, because Wiggins is an exceptional individual time trialist, but just sitting on the back there doing nothing at all. He looks as if he's got his feet up with his pipe and his slippers, is Andreas Kloden.
Kloden may take advantage if he comes up to the top and improve his own personal overall position, but Wiggins has been so impressive today. And we've gone back to the leaders here. The face now, the pressure on for Pellizotti. He's close to getting maximum points of 30. He looks across there at Vandenbroek, who looks at him with those vacant eyes, and they're trying to help each other here. And it's hard work, isn't it, to catch leaders on a big climb like this? But here he comes, Mikel Astolosa, with every pedal there. He's literally inching forward to these two.
He certainly is. He's an experienced professional, Phil. He's been around for an awful long time. In fact, he turned professional way back in 2002. He's hardly ever won any bike races. In fact, the only victory he has to his credit is the overall winner, the Jacobs Streak Tour Down Under.
He's back on now. He's joined us. So we've got 3 riders up front with 34 kilometres, 21 miles from the finish. The white jersey, and look, and now he's waited until he saw the chance, and Lance Armstrong is countering the move of his team. He's trying to reach him with a sprint up the mountain.
Well, he waited to see what the position was of all the other riders in that group.
Well, Lance Armstrong has countered the move as we cut away here up to the situation as that is Kim Kirken trying to reach Armstrong. They are trying to cross the gap now to the yellow jersey group of Alberto Contador.
Well, that is a question of experience, Phil. He's seen exactly what he wanted to do. He waited to see how the other guys were in the group. He played the team game here this afternoon. He looked at Cadel Evans. He looked at Carlos Sastre and said, right, you guys have not got it. I'm going across the gap now, and I'm going to ride up to my other mates.
There they are. That yellow car signifies sitting in behind the yellow jersey group of Alberto Contador, Andreas Kloden. And if Lance Armstrong gets there, the Schleck brothers will be in a state of disarray. Kim Kirken, the other Luxembourger in the race, is getting the free passage here as well, although his face is a picture of pain. These are the groups that Armstrong and Kirken are trying to reach, and it's Andy Schleck doing the work.
Coming across there, this is Christian Vande Velde coming across the gap to Lance Armstrong. But, oh, he tries to go past Kirken, who can't hold the wheel of Armstrong.
Well, that's a nice reaction, I must say, from Christian, as he just gets across there. The rider reaching there is Rigoberto Urán, who is a very good climber. A bit surprised to see him, but he's come up and he's hung on to Christian. The 2 Americans here in tandem now, trying to reach reach the group up front. This will be a terrific support too for Bradley Wiggins if Van der Velde can get there.
Well, Armstrong really is a great champion. This is
What
Jens
a battle
Voigt
on the
now.
mountain.
Voigt now has been picked up by Andy Schleck's group, and he's going to try and bury himself. Even if it's only for 500 metres, it gives some respite to his leader there. And there you can see Contador out of the saddle, dancing away, keeping an eye on the rider from Luxembourg just in front of him.
He knows that Armstrong is coming. He keeps looking over his shoulder to see is he close enough. He won't attack the yellow jersey. Armstrong might well join here.
Frank Schleck had gone from that group. He'd been caught out by the acceleration of his own brother. He was going backwards very shortly. Lance Armstrong is going to catch Frank Schleck and go by him.
6 riders are left in this very select in-house fight here for the leadership of the Tour de France. And I know there are riders ahead, but this is the race right here. 2 minutes and 8 seconds now.
This is Lance Armstrong. He's dislodged the climber from Colombia, Uran, and he's dislodged Christian Van der Velde. He's gone straight by Frank Schleck. Goodbye, Frank. You're not having this back wheel. You may well be a young bike rider, but look at this.
Lance Armstrong is countering the move now as he continues to fleetfrog the groups here. He's getting very, very close. He's got rid of Christian Van der Velde. He's passed Frank Schleck, and he's headed up now to the yellow jersey of Contador.
We expected him to go better on these long mountain stages. What he's looking for is that yellow car in front, because that yellow car, Phil, is the neutral service vehicle behind Andy Schleck, behind Alberto Contador, and that is what his goal is here this afternoon. He's looking for them.
And he's getting them. Well, what an incredible battle this is on the Petit Saint Bernard. It's all showdown today. All guns are out now. And remember, we plunge off this mountain. It is going to be an incredible drop down. So let's have a look in what's happening now.
Lance is coming by himself, eh? Lance is coming by himself. Lance está entrando solo.
That's incredible. He's now told. That's why Contador was looking over his shoulder. Lance is coming by himself. And here he comes. He's sprinting across the gap. Johan Bernil just told Lance Armstrong, he's just told Contador that Lance is coming. Contador looked over his shoulder and Lance has arrived, and the big stare there from Andy Schleck. He must be surprised to see Armstrong here.
He's probably thinking, where have you come from? Because they could not believe that Lance Armstrong, under pressure for about a kilometre or so, was going to come back to this group. Now look at that. You've got 3 riders from Astana in this elite group, while further up the road you can see the chaos, and Armel Moignard is also just about to join the leading group of 3.
The top 5 riders in the Tour de France are all riding together. This is absolutely amazing. As we continue to go on here, talking about flags, the crowd here are enormous.
Very good. Lance is back. Frank Schleck is dropped.
Well, I think looks as though Johan Bernil.
We don't do anything. We don't do anything. Just wait. Don't do anything.
That's it. Sit back. All of the men that matter are in this group. The top 5 riders of the Tour de France are back together again. Armstrong sitting there on the left. Orders coming up now. Just sit there where you are. The contenders are all back together. The big man missing, Carlos Sastre. He's down the road. Somewhere too is Cadel Evans. He's not in this group yet. He's got to climb back. This is an incredible battle, but they've all come back together.
Well, the Schleck brothers tried everything they could. They threw caution to the wind. They threw attack after attack at this group. And Alberto Contador, Phil, he just sat there very comfortably, matched all of the moves. And I take my hat off to Armstrong. That was a phenomenal piece of riding by Armstrong. And once Armstrong came up to the front, I think that took the wind out of the sails of the Schleck brothers.
It has to, doesn't it? Let me remind you, there is a breakaway. Vandenbroek, Astelosa, Pelazzotti, and now Armel Moignard has joined the leaders. So there are 4 riders up front. But this is where the battle for the Tour is. And they're riding at about 2 minutes and 17, 2 minutes 20. Racing for the points at the top of the climb here. 31.3 kilometres to go as they're coming up towards the summit now. And there it is. Well, Pelazzotti wants the 30 points for a maximum of 50. But Astolotto wants to beat him and stop him taking all those points, but that's not going to happen. That's been a great day out, hasn't it, for Franco Pellizotti. He's won both mountains today. He puts 50 points in the bank. Tremendous climbing.
Well, he predicted this, but to do what you've predicted at the start of a day is not necessarily an easy thing to do. He's had a great day out, and now he's got to try and figure out, can he get himself a stage victory? You might remember he had to settle for second place on the stage that came out of the Pyrenees and on the road into Tarbes. He could think about getting a win this afternoon.
Well, he who descends the best will win the day, because it is a very tricky descent now, and it's going to take them the best part of half an hour to descend to the finish. It's that far, and the finishing line is the bottom of the descent.
Cannot get over the way Armstrong came out of that group and straight across the pack there, Phil. That was a phenomenal piece of riding by Armstrong. It looks as if there's one or two more riders here starting to recover as well.
Well, I don't think they'll push on. It's up to the Schlecht, and well, this is Sastre coming back, and I think he's very lucky the pressure has gone off at the front end, because there's no reason for Armstrong, Claude and Contador to ride. So if the attacks have stopped, that pace will slow.
Dave Zabriskie coming back as well. That's a pretty impressive ride by him. We always knew he could climb well. He's a great individual time trialist, but he's about to rejoin the lead pack.
That's an incredible ride by Dave Zabriskie, and Christophe Moreau is in there. I'm really surprised about that in the blue jersey. Now, it's over the top now, virtually, so this will be the group, and it's going to swell just a little bit as well.
Well, once we go through the summit of the climb here, we're not too far away from the customs point, and that will take these riders back into France once again. Wiggins accelerating to go over the top of the climb in first position. They haven't put him under difficulty today either, and they need to.
He's been hardly out of breath. He's looked so impressive on these two climbs, and he looks very impressive as we look at the face of Bradley Wiggins now. 30 kilometres for the leaders. These boys about 31.5 from the finish. But once they tip over the top, it is literally all downhill. There'll be no more attacks today. It's goodbye to Italy. It's welcome back to the Tour de France in France.
To also take care and attention on the descent, Phil, because it is a very tricky descent, and I don't think any of these riders want to take too many risks. Andy Schlecht comes forward once again to get himself possibly a few points in the King of the Mountains classification. 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
You've got a drink as well. Well taken by the boys. They snatched a couple of bottles. All right, the chase is still on for who wins the day, but I would say Bradley Wiggins is the star right now. He's holding his third place overall. No more mountains left today.
But who, Phil, is going to take the offensive on the descent? So there is the border. France is welcoming back the Tour de France, as we now will face up to 31 kilometres, 18.5 miles of descent. And it is a very savage and technical descent on the running down towards the line here in Bourg Saint-Maurice. Just getting onto the back there, the former French national champion, Nicolas Vaugondi.
Good for him. We have seen a real battle today, and we've not seen anybody rock Alberto Contador. But in fact, to the contrary, you know, with Lance takes a little bit longer to get up to tempo. But boy, that was a most impressive chase. So you see, bodies react differently on the longer climbs, and tomorrow will be a big story, I think. Armstrong is going to fight, and he's going to fight all the way to Paris. We're now all downhill with the leaders of the Tour de France, the bunch up front and the Armstrong-Contador group. They're on the way down, so we will now have to take Evans can reach that group. He's gone over the top just on 2 minutes back, but these are the four leaders here. Vandenbroek, Astolotto, Pellizotti and Wanyard are the men up front. Astolotto is going to move up a little bit in the overall if he can stay away. All of those 25 kilometres to the finish are all downhill now.
Yeah, Jens Voigt has crashed. I just heard on race radio, looking back there's a very nasty crash at the front end. There he is. That's Voigt in the middle of the road there. He went down and it was actually sitting in the back. Ooh, that's nasty.
Well, I don't know what happened there, but that was a very nasty crash by Jens Voigt. Let's hope he is okay. The car is there. The doctors will be there straight away. Now, that has just happened on the descent, which has just started, as our cameras go down to catch up with the leaders. Now, he was with that group, had done a lot of work, in fact, just before the top of the climb.
And then he just hit something in the road there, Phil, and lost complete control, and that can happen on a descent, and he was probably doing close to 50 miles an hour when that happened. At the front, that leading group of four riders, I would say, are not going to get caught before the end. The work is being done here by Dave Zabriskie. As we look at that crash, you see, he just hit something with the front, and then the bike just went from underneath him.
Well, that was a very, very nasty crash for Jens Voigt, and it had to be something in the road there because he wasn't near a bicycle ride. Let's hope Jens is okay. He's one of the characters of the Tour de France. He never knows when to stop working for his team. Now the race is being driven on here at the front now, and these boys are racing down this mountain, and it's to keep Carlos Sastre and Cadel Evans out of the frame. 1:46 to the leaders. There is a chance, Paul, they can bridge.
Well, it depends on just how well that leading group work together. You know, you can't really pull an awful lot back on a descent if a lot of these guys are working well together, and the 4 men at the front were working well together. Dave Zabriskie is the only rider actually doing the pacemaking in this group. Nobody else has an interest in catching the leading group of 4.
Well, the group Maillot Jaune of Contador went up the mountain a little bit quicker, by almost 2.5 minutes faster than the leaders today, because of the infighting that was going on with Andy Schleck and his Saxo team. They survived the battle. Armstrong got back into the thick of the action. We're on the way down to the finish now in Bourg-Saint-Maurice. We never finished here since 1939. I don't know why, because it's a fabulous area. We often pass through the area.
Well, I can tell you why, because in recent years, every time we've ever come through Bourg-Saint-Maurice, we've either gone to a mountaintop finish, either in La Plagne or Les Arcs or somewhere else, because Bourg-Saint-Maurice is the gateway to a lot of ski resorts in this part of the world. That's why we've never had a finish in the bottom.
And there's lots of funiculars and cable cars going away from the town up all of the mountains. Apparently they're stopping building them now so they don't ruin the countryside. Anyway, 18 seconds the first group. Then we've got the group Maillot Jaune at 1 minute and 3/4. The group chasing, of course, is the remnants of the original breakaway from which the 4 leaders left on the way up the Petit Bernard, Saint Bernard. There they are. They're the 4 leaders.
4 leaders going around the corner. There's Franco Pellizotti doing the pacemaking. He's in with a very good chance of getting himself a stage victory. And if anybody deserves a stage victory, I have to say that he does. He's been on the attack on a number of occasions and hasn't quite been able to come up with the goods. They've got to keep working hard. They have a group at around about 10 seconds, which, as you said, Phil, are the remnants of the group that they were with. And in that group is Jose Gomez, Stefan Goubert, Sandy Cassar, and Peric Federigo, who, if you cast your mind back to the finish in Tarbes, is the man who got across the line ahead of Franco Pellizotti.
He hasn't been quite up to Pellizotti's skill in the mountains, though. Pellizotti has got his gap. He did try. He tried to move Federigo with his teammate Lefebvre. Didn't work. But Nicolas Roche is also chasing down there, and he might well reach. He's had a second place in the Besançon, you may remember, so he's enjoying his first.
And 35 seconds is the amount of time that they're looking for. And Vincenzo Nibali, and it looks like Roman Kreuziger has managed to come back into this group also.
Well, at 20 kilometers to go, the Maillot Jaune group is exactly 1.5 minutes behind the leaders, so they're pulling them back slowly, but not with any great speed. The man, don't forget, who's gaining today is Astolosa. He started 5 minutes and 37 seconds behind, so he got to 4 minutes 07. He'd probably go in front of riders like Cadel Evans today, because Cadel, unless he's just come on the back of this group, and I'm not sure, I don't think he has.
I don't think so. I don't think there's still a number of riders trying to come back and make the junction. They will take all kinds of risks on this descent to see whether or not they can pull themselves back into the field. But the group of the yellow jersey, it's not in their interest, Phil, to take any risks on a descent like this, because as we've seen a little bit earlier up the climb, it's very easy to go down, and you can lose your whole Tour de France just by wanting to go downhill too fast.
So they're snaking their way down in this most beautiful part of the world, right down into the valley in Bourg-Saint-Maurice today. These are the 4 leaders, I think. We are now with the 4 leaders. Yes, Van den Broek, Astolosa, Pellizotti, Moignard. Nobody breaking away either, so they're all descending together. And we should see the 4 chasers coming around that corner. There they are. So the gap is probably about still 15 seconds.
Just hovering there. Stefan Goubert is trying to get across with his teammate Nicolas Roche. Sandy Cassar in the white jersey. He's the one just accelerating past Roche. And the other rider on the back there was Peric Federigo.
Well, this has got to be one of the longest descents in the Alps, and these riders are flying down it. It's a long way still to the valley below. Those 4 should bridge, but how far behind will the Maillot Jaune group be as we head down? There's still 17 kilometers down to the bottom of this road.
And that's where the finish is, down in the bottom. That is at Bourg-Saint-Maurice, and that's where we have to get to after a 19-mile, 31-kilometer descent at speeds, on average, pretty close to 60 kilometers an hour. They're knocking off 1 kilometer for 1 minute at the moment.
Minute 22 now, so they're closing in the Maillot Jaune group on everybody ahead.
They are.
Now these 4 riders were back up here with the leaders. Pellizotti will be anxious. He packs a good sprint, Pellizotti, as well. He'll be well aware of that. As we're looking to the other three riders, I thought Van den Broek might have taken a chance and gone for a flyer. There's still time here. They're the four leaders. Here come the four chasers. They might get on. It's going to be 9 seconds between the Group Maillot Jaune and the four chasers, and then the spread is 1:15 to the four leaders. It's amazing how close these riders are going to come into town today.
I just noticed in this group ride at Phil, there is a rider from Cervelo Test Team, and I have a feeling that is Jose Angel Gomez.
He must have got up pretty quick, but they said he did get up pretty quick. There's 10 kilometers to go now. Astolosa and the four leaders. Astolosa really indicating he wants to win this, but I think he's advertising it a bit too much just now.
Well, that second group has come back to around about 12 seconds, I make it.
No,
they make it 14.
They make it 14. We'll go with them. 14 seconds for the four chasers, and then we're going to see the peloton. They're going to have to watch out with those cars behind those four chasers very shortly.
The referees will pull those out as smartly as possible once they know that the main field is starting to nail back. It's 1:15 seconds, and the fact is we go downhill almost straight into the finishing line, Phil, and I have a feeling these four riders and the other four behind them have got enough time over the main field just to survive on a day like this and dispute the victory, and I think they deserve it after a long day in the saddle.
Well, something like Pelazzotti and in fact Astolosa, who sprinted out of the pack and caught the original break on the top of the Grand Saint Bernard, has been a feature ever since. 1:11, the 1:10 as we speak. The peloton is flying down this mountain.
It's not actually the peloton, it's Dave Zabriskie of Garmin Slipstream. He's doing all of the work on the front end of this group. 100% of the work is being done by Dave Zabriskie, and the reason for that, Phil, is to open up 1:12 as he goes under there. It's to open up the gap between the riders who have missed on the split this afternoon. They don't want to waste any of the time gains that they got on the mountain, and they want to make sure that if they're going to put a nail into Cadel Evans's coffin, it's here on the descent that they do it.
It is amazing that they are dropping last year's winner and Cadel Evans out of the picture here. I think Zabriskie is in his familiar position of an individual time trialist here, silver medalist in the World Championship of the time trial. He is pushing this race on unbelievably quickly. 1:09 now, and coming in on that second chasing group of four. They're not safe. Van den Broek here setting the pace up just now. Astolosa taking it up. They will know they're coming. 8 kilometers to go, just over 5 miles. Pelazzotti can climb and he can sprint.
And he's got to get his tactics right, though, because he got beaten to the line by Peric Federigo on the road into Tarbes. And strangely enough, in that group of four behind is Peric Federigo. He'll be thinking about stage victory.
To the four leaders, the gap to the peloton, yellow jersey, 58 seconds now. They're sprinting out of that corner. They know that these four are almost on them. This is a real pursuit. It's like a team pursuit on the track. Four chasing four riders here. There's about, what, a kilometre of flattish road to the line. That's it. So we've still got over 3 kilometres of descending.
And it is hard, Phil, to close a 5-second gap when both groups are going downhill at 60 kilometres an hour. Cadel Evans has really lost out this afternoon. The time gap is coming through now. The Evans is at 3 minutes and 47 seconds to the lead, but more importantly, Phil, he's 2 minutes 47 seconds behind the yellow jersey group.
That's absolutely right, and that will not be recountable tomorrow. And Sastre, we believe, is with the Cadel Evans group, but we don't know for sure. There's a bottle gone off over the side here now as this group continues. This is one of the chase groups here. As they continue down, we are behind the yellow jersey group, I think. Or are these the four catching four? I've lost my place.
This is the four leaders there, just in the background. You can see the four chasers.
Spot them here. 55 seconds is back to Dave Zabriskie's group. The kilometres are flying off the screen now. 3.4 left to right. There they come. This is the real charge now. There'll be 8 riders with 2 kilometres to go. Then the shadow boxing will start while the yellow jersey group will continue to come down.
Well, it's 6 seconds, the official time gap. 56 seconds to the yellow jersey group. Now they're starting to slow. They're getting onto the flatter part of the course. That will give the advantage to these four chasers. Sandy Cassar is in there. He'll be looking for a victory to add to the victory he had a little while ago.
Nicholas Roach will be in there too for all of Ireland today, as Moyard knows they're coming. He's tired to have a little dig at 2.9 kilometres. Quickly onto him, Jurgen van den Broek. They split the chase group. The four chasers behind will see this. It might put them into a little bit of disarray just for the moment. Moyard hasn't worked. We've got to slam those brakes on as we're running off the mountain now. Bunny hopping over the roundabout into town, and there's only 2.7 kilometres to go. A blink of the eyelid and the four guys are nearly on.
They're just about there. That little clever move by Moignard will take the impetus out of this leading group of 4, and that will give the chance to the 4 chasers to quite possibly nail back that final few seconds. Coming up to the front now, Jürgen van den Broek. There's another move gone over the top. Astrolosa, he's a clever rider.
Astrolosa saw them and he'd gone. He went off our camera as well at 2 kilometres to go. Astrolosa drives for home. He had the most to gain. He was highest place, but Dave Zabrisky's got rid of all that time gain. He's only 57 seconds behind now. But Astrolosa wants the stage with Euskaltel Euskadi, and he's got an impressionable gap now.
And he's gone around those corners and not lost any of his impetus at all. He's an experienced pro. Phil, remember what we've said so many times about this guy. He's never crossed the line in first place. He won the Jacobs Creek Tour Down Under in the overall classification. He's never had the possibility in his professional career of putting his arms in the air.
57 seconds is the gap to the yellow jersey group as Mikel Astrolosa now tries to push home, having won the Tour Down Under, and that's it. He's now into town. Look at this crowd. We should have come back before 1939. It's an incredible crowd here as we race under 1 kilometre to go. They were preoccupied about the back 4, and Mikel Astrolosa has flown, and look at his face now. Don't look round, Mikel, because you're the race right now.
He has got to concentrate. He's got to get every last little bit of energy out of that body of his. Who is going to chase? The problem in that group behind Phil, they've come together and they're all thinking about the sprint. They don't want to do too much work, because if you work too much now, you lose the sprint. Astrolosa looks over his shoulder. He's got to keep going now. You're almost willing on this man from the orange jersey, Euskaltel Euskadi, to get the victory here this afternoon.
At last, as he comes into the finishing straight here now, Mikel Astrolosa, a little bit of a speed wobble there. It's a tight bend this. He goes through a very, very tight chicane as they approach the line, and then he'll come up to the finish here as Mikel Astrolosa now has got something he's never done before, and that's first place in a road race, and he's chosen the Tour de France and stage 16 over the mountains from Switzerland through Italy into France, and he's got the victory. He can't believe it. Yes, I don't believe it. Doesn't believe it himself here, Paul. He's finally won a stage of the Tour. Second place sprint is going to be Fedrigo or Sandy Cassar.
Well, it may be Sandy Cassar, because he seems to enjoy second places on stages of the Tour. I think that if he's second, that will be his 6th second place on a stage race in the stage of the Tour de France. Well, this is the big group now with Lance Armstrong, Alberto Contador. It's still Dave Zabriskie on the front end of the main field. They're sprinting here for a long way down, maybe 9th place.
Well, that doesn't matter now. The fact is they've saved today. Astrolosa's gained only a few seconds. It's nothing. Doesn't matter.
Carlos Sastra's in that group.
Paul just spotted Carlos Sastra was here, so it seems the only loser of the day is Cadel Evans. He must have got back on the descent. We haven't been able to put a camera in there since. All of the Astana team are coming in. Look at this, the yellow jersey even going with the breakaway, just to remind them. Now that's what a champion does. He's even taking on Christophe Moreau in the sprint as they come up towards. He's actually trying to win this sprint. He comes over the line behind Christophe Moreau, and that is a very, very good result. And hats off to Dave Zabriskie today, and Bradley Wiggins as well.
And Lance Armstrong, who made an incredible comeback. But there's the winner. What joy for this team.
Well, there's a big emotion here because he turned professional in 2002. He's been with Team AG2R for most of his time. Then he swung over in 2007 to the team he's with now, and he finally gets to win a bike race. He won the overall Tour Down Under prize, but he's never won a stage of a race. As we look here now, this is just the Agri-Turbo. This is the Cadel Evans group, and he's quite a way down. He's third wheel here, unfortunately, at the moment, Cadel Evans.
I think he's pretty much out and about there, Cadel Evans. All he can think about now, Phil, is quite possibly trying to get himself a stage victory. Obviously didn't have it on the slopes of the Col de Petit Saint-Bernard. He was not able to follow the accelerations of Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck, and this has been rather a bad day for the Australian.
He was 3 kilometres behind Astrolosa as he crossed the line. And he's going to come in now, and he'll be disappointed now because his tour for a podium place in Paris has to be over. He'll go for the stage wins, hopefully, maybe tomorrow. A vicious day of racing tomorrow. Well, look at this. Enjoy these moments.
I wonder how many people predicted this man's victory, because he's one of those guys who's been consistent throughout his professional career. He's never won too many races. And I'll bet Franco Pellizotti wasn't too keen to chase him down, because this guy he was in the breakaway as well on the big stage through the Pyrenees on the way into Tarbes, and I think he finished 3rd on that stage. Dale Evans will not be a happy camper this afternoon when he comes up to the finish line. There he he is in the middle of that group, but what's more importantly is have a look at that time gap. The gap that he has lost is quite big. And a lot of that really done because of the moves and the work done by Dave Zabriskie on the front end of the main field. 3:52.3 on the line. That's a big loss.
That's lost almost double what he was behind overnight, so he's going to be the best part of 7.5 minutes behind the race leader in the Tour de France tonight. Coverage here on Versus. Now let's have a look at the situation on the stage result. Mikel Astolosa, first time his name's been on top of the board like that, ahead of Sandy Cassar. 6 seconds he escaped by. Fedrigo third, having won in Tarbes. Nicholas Roach fourth, having been second in Besançon. Jurgen van den Broek fifth, and he rode really well, all given the same chase time at 6 seconds. Moignard also at 6. Pellizotti tailed off a little bit to 11. Goubert at 11. Moreau brought the peloton home, and the 59 seconds, the final gap, when at the top of the mountain, I think it was almost 2 minutes.
Yes, and looking a little bit further down, Vincenzo Nibali 11th, Lance Armstrong 12th, Bradley Wiggins 13th, Andreas Kloden 14th. They are all paying a great deal of attention on a day like this. A little bit further back, Roman Kreuziger 18th, Andy Schleck 19th, just ahead of his brother Frank Schleck in 20th place, all given exactly the same time at 59 seconds.
Yes, that's the important thing, but Cadel Evans will come in at over 3.25 minutes.
A little bit of news just coming in, Phil, by the way, just on Jens Voigt. He didn't lose consciousness. He has been taken to hospital, but he seems to be okay.
Well, we hope so. It was just a horrible, excuse me, a horrible looking crash indeed. He fell flat onto his face, quite literally. But he was sliding quickly, so let's overall standings now. And there's really no change between Contador, Armstrong, Wiggins and Kloden and Schleck. They all finished in that group, so the time gaps in the end remain the same as they were this morning.
But I have to say, Bradley, I think Wiggins was very impressionable on the climb. Christophe Lemavelle is not bad for a Frenchman, best Frenchman for a long time, up in 7th. Frank Schleck in 8th place. Carlos Sastre saved himself on the final climb there and got himself back into the group for 9th. Christian van der Velde up from 12th to 10th has got inside of the top 10 now. Mikel Astolosa, with that great performance today, has moved up to 11th. Kreuziger down to 12th. Kirken holds on into 13th. Sandy Cassar, second Frenchman, in 15th place.
Let's see if Cadel Evans sends up. There he is, but he is, as I said, over 7 minutes back now. 7:23, Cadel Evans 17.